Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto Youkai powers in High School DxD. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Skyreaper1337 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1, The Thrill of the Fight. Everybody dies sooner than later. Many have probably wondered at some point, how, or perhaps when they will die. He didn't think that was the most important. No, he thought it was more important to think about how you should live, and especially when you should live. Those questions won't resolve on their own. Just because you are alive, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are living in the moment. The harsh truth was that the majority used their time speculating about what had happened in the past, and how it'd affect their future, thinking about stuff that had felt terrible in the past, and thus tried justifying why the present was horrible, and how the future would only get worse. Some might even question why the past had been amazing, and why the present paled in comparison, and if the future would continue to get worse. And in doing so, you'd constantly prepare yourself for a world that doesn't exist, instead of the world that you were living in. He had made the same mistakes when he had lived as Uzumaki Naruto. What baffled him was that the universe had taken his existence, and created it anew. Even after his death by the hand of his best friend, who he had failed to save, a greater power had decided this wasn't the end. In the present day, he was still Naruto, something that he really appreciated. The sad truth was just that the surname he had come to cherish after he met his parents hadn't come along. In this existence, he had come to be known as Naruto Citri, of the House of Citri. And he was now a devil. Yes, a devil. It felt ironic to him that he had once been known as the child of prophecy that'd bring peace to a world of war, only to be reborn into another universe as a being that was considered the antithesis to peace. It hadn't been all bad. Living in the luxurious mansion of the Citri had its perks. Good clothes, good food, and so on. He sighed at the thought, a small smile on his face as he stuck his hands into his pockets. It wasn't just his name that had been changed, but also his looks. Damn genetics. He had once been blonde with blue eyes, now his hair was black with faint traces of dark purple, and his eyes as red as the Sharingan he had fought against so many times. His clothes were relatively simple in comparison. An all-black high-neck jacket with matching pants and dark dress boots. It was so different from shinobi attire, it had taken a long time to get used to. Not to speak of how long it had taken to get used to his new face. I wonder if I'll ever get truly used to it, he sighed and stared down at his reflection in the floor panels. Their maids really went all in when they cleaned this place. Ever get used to what, Narutan? A loud voice called out, and his brows raised in surprise. He barely got to turn his body halfway before he felt somebody slam into him from behind. Their arms dragged around his neck as they just hung there like a monkey on a tree. It was hard to fight a chuckle escaping his lips. I was wondering if I'd ever get used to you climbing on me. Wait, that came out wrong. A feminine giggle met his ears, followed by a jealous tone. It's your fault for being taller than me. Who gave you permission to be taller than your older sister Narutan? It's not like I chose my height, Nae-sama. He groaned and tapped her arms on his neck with his fingers. Now could you please get off my neck, you're strangling me. The shorter dark-haired girl laughed, and dropped back down to the floor. It must be the Agars in you, but then again even Sotan is taller than me. Naruto gave a small chuckle at her antics. He reminded him so much of himself back in the elemental nations, not to ruin the mood Nae-sama. But aren't you like stupid busy? Seraphal nodded her head with a pout. I might never have accepted the Leviathan title if I knew how much work it was. And stop the formal crap, it's serenade to you. He sweat dropped and laughed in a nervous manner. Please don't joke about that. A pout crept onto her face as she waved her hand dismissively. Yeah. As to why I'm here, I got good news for you. For me? He questioned with a surprised look. She raised her brows in confusion. Don't tell me you already forgot about that favor you asked of me. Because I'm still holding you to your end of the deal. He seemed deep in thought for a second as his eyes widened in realization. You got an answer from Kyoto already? A triumphant grin found its way onto his big sister's face as she struck a pose and handed a slip of paper to him. Sure did. I moved your request to the top of the pile, and with this pass, you're free to enter and exit as long as you don't cause any trouble. A genuine smile found its way onto his face. You're the best. He grinned sheepishly and reached out for the paper slip, but gave a deadpan expression when she retracted her hand. Don't forget your promise. She hummed and slowly handed him the pass after a few seconds. Looking at her hand to see if she'd draw it back again, he slowly took it and nodded his head. I'm a man of my word. I'll keep an eye on Ko, and inform you about Sona's progress. And what she isn't telling you. A frown fell over her face like a ton of bricks as she sighed. Sotan never tells me anything. Last time there was an open house at the school, I had to hear it from Rias. Naruto's sweat dropped. Don't worry, I'll keep you updated. Anyhow, I should get going. I think I'll take the train there. The Leviathan leaned up against the wall as she watched her younger brother. Well, half-brothers form retreat with a bit more seriousness in her eyes. Do you mind if I ask why you want to go to Kyoto so bad? It seemed urgent. The former Uzumaki stopped in his tracks as he stared at the floor for a second, subconsciously touching a spot on his stomach before he turned his head to look over his shoulder. I got a feeling I'll find someone interesting there. Seraph's eyes glinted with interest. Someone for your peerage? It's about time. Sotan and Rias already have quite a few members, and you're their senior and haven't even started looking properly yet. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Maybe. I don't know if they're really there. I'll let you know though. With a finger to her lips, Seraphol thought for a couple of seconds. It'd probably be good. We've tried to establish more friendly connections since the Nekisha incidents, and this could be a help if you did befriend one. He of course knew about that. A Nekisha had apparently gone crazy due to the use of senjutsu, though he felt it was sketchy. He might have been a late bloomer in regards to learning his inherent devil abilities, but if senjutsu was anything like he remembered, then there was something sketchy about this. I'll give it a try. I just hope they don't try to kill me on the spot. He sweat dropped. Seraphol waved her hands dismissively. You're my little brother, you'll be fine. You've got the pass, and Yasaka knows you're coming. Yasaka? Naruto asked with a raised brow. She nodded. She's the leader of the Youkai faction. She accepted the request to travel through Kyoto. So don't worry too much. He gave a nod and raised his hand in a wave. I'll keep it in mind. I'll see you soon, Ne-sama. Her face lit up a bright red as she raised a fist to the air. I told you already, it's Serene. With a shake of his head, he rounded a corner whilst chuckling loud enough to hear. Much to her dismay, one thing he wasn't sure he'd ever get used to was the technological advancement this world had compared to the elemental nations. He had seen a train before, in Koiki's country, but this was on another level. Not to mention it hadn't been this peaceful when he had been in Yuki no Kuni, so he hadn't actually managed to get an impression of what the technology was like. So now when he sat in a train, he just stared aimlessly out the window, at the trees passing his field of vision. He could go there faster himself, sure, but he wanted to try new things once in a while. Mind if I sit here with you? Naruto blinked for a second, brought out of his wandering thoughts to meet the sight of a tall man with an average build, black hair, golden bangs, and a black goatee. Speak of looking original. He blinked again and just nodded his head in a polite manner. Sure, go ahead. The seat is free anyway. Ah, thank you. He grinned and sat down with a sigh, as a silence fell over them. Naruto turned his head to gaze out the window again, supporting his head with his arm that he rested on the thin windowsill. That's strange. I could have sworn there were plenty of seats available aside from that one. Mind if I ask why you look so occupied? It's almost as if this was your first time on a train. The man chuckled. With the urge to sigh fought back, Naruto leaned back in his seat. Not the first time, perhaps the second or third. Haven't had much need for taking the train before. Ah, makes sense. So where are you going? On an adventure perhaps? I fail to see any luggage. If it is an adventure, it's not a thoroughly planned one. He had to admit this guy was a bit strange, perhaps just talkative, but something felt off. I'm on my way to Kyoto. I guess you could say I'm going sightseeing. For Youkai perhaps? Naruto's eyes widened as he felt his guards rise to the sudden question. How'd you? The man waved his hands dismissively. Don't look at me like that. Kyoto is an amazing place. All those shrines, and stands with figures of animals. It's the perfect tourist attraction. Been there a couple of times myself. His posture relaxed again as he gave a nod. I'll take your word for it then. As the train came to a stop at the next station, the stranger stretched and stood up from his seat. This is my stop. Thanks for keeping me company. It was entertaining. With a raised brow, Naruto watched as he was about to walk past him. I never caught your name. A smirk settled on the man's face as he stopped in his tracks. Oh, how silly of me, it's Azazel. He responded in a casual tone, and with that, he just walked off. Faster than anyone could blink, Naruto's eyes widened as he rose to his feet, staring from the corner of his eyes at the man's retreating form. What? No reply came, as he was forced to watch idly as the Governor-General of the Fallen Angels exited the train. With a confused look, he sat down in his seat again and let his eyes follow Azazel through the window. This couldn't have been a coincidence. There was no way that a person as important as him would take the train without wanting something. Does that mean he knows who I am? Naruto questioned himself before he scoffed with a frown. Of course he does. There's no other explanation as to why he'd come to sit next to me. But what did he want? The question rang through his mind as the train conductor blew his whistle and the train started to pick up speed again. The last thing he managed to see was Azazel just casually waving at him. Kyoto, it's the cultural capital of Japan and a major tourist destination. It is home to numerous Buddhist temples, Shinto shrines, palaces, and gardens, as well as the home and headquarters of the Youkai faction. Naruto had no doubt they already knew that he was here. From the intel he could gather, they were beings with excellent skill in Jujutsu and potentially Senjutsu. And if Senjutsu was anything like it was in his old life, then they'd have sensed him from miles away. He just hoped his presence here wouldn't cause any problems. He had his doubts though. There was bad blood between his faction and theirs, and even if he swore upon his life and family, they'd have no reason to believe he was being genuine about it. He sighed as he walked through the red gates of Fushimi Inari Taisha. It felt like the gates would never stop. There had to be several thousands of them. And not only that, it'd take him 2 hours to walk the entire way to where he was headed. There wasn't a specific reason as to why he chose this location to visit first, he just thought it'd be a given that he'd run into them here. The place was surrounded by forest, and felt like the ideal spot for Youkai to watch him from a distance. However, something bothered him. From the moment he had stepped out of the train, it was as if eyes were staring down his neck. And he didn't believe Youkai would be so careless as to let their presence be felt on their home court. If he had to take a guess, it had to be a fallen. Azazel had after all been in his presence for a reason he didn't know, as if he was keeping an eye on him. What he could have done to intrigue the Governor-General of the Grigori was beyond him. With a twitching eyebrow, he stopped in his tracks and made a turn to his right, walking out between the red gates and into the forest. With a careful glance, he looked around him, making sure no ordinary humans were around. He stuck his hands in his pockets while grunting and stared up into the tree crowns. "Why don't we stop this game of hide and seek? This is starting to annoy me," he called out into the trees. Silence filled his surroundings, as no response came. With a raised brow on his forehead, he started to wonder if he had just imagined it. He stood there for a while, waiting to see if his mind was playing jokes on him. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, a snicker from behind him met his ears. With a surprised glance, he spun around on his feet, the branches that had fallen from the trees cracking beneath his feet as he stared at the person that had been keeping an eye on him ever since he arrived here. What he came face to face with was a young man with short light-colored hair sitting on top of the gate he had just walked through, wearing what he'd guessed to be old Chinese battle armor, with a staff in his grasp that he rested against his shoulder. "Very impressive. You were actually able to sense me. Seems like the words about you were true. You're indeed an interesting fellow," he bellowed with a grin on his face. Naruto snorted. "Compared to what I had imagined the yokai's ability to hide to be like, I'm sad to say I'm disappointed." He chuckled with a returned grin. The stranger put a hand over his heart. "You wound me with your words, devil. I shall endeavor to prove you wrong in due time." With a chuckle, Naruto shook his head. "So who are you supposed to be, and what do you want from me?" With a laugh, the man dropped from the gate and onto the forest floor. "I'm Biko, a descendant of Sun Wukong himself. I had heard about you, and was itching to see what you're capable of." Surprise filled him as he pulled his hands out of his pockets and crossed his arms over his chest. "Biko, you say? Then you must be the Monkey King. Rumor had it that you had left your mountain. So, where did you, a vagabond, hear about me?" Biko swirled his staff around and planted it into the ground. "I heard about you from a little snake. You seem to have piqued her attention with your potential, and after hearing such praise, I had to see you with my own eyes. Sorry, I don't swing that way. Now, is there anything else, or can you just go away?" Biko sighed and picked up his staff. "How unfortunate, at least I tried. Well, I'm sorry to say that I won't be leaving any time soon. Rather, would you care to join me for a dance?" Naruto cracked his knuckles. "Well, if you are offering so much, how could I decline? Let's dance. Glad to see that we're on the same wavelength. I've been itching for a good fight." Biko smirked and twirled his staff around as his tail flicked behind him, and faster than the ordinary person could see he flew forward. The devil's eyes narrowed as he took a fighting stance. Hand-to-hand combat had always been something he made sure to keep up with. People like Guy and Lee had always shown him the importance of being able to kick ass. Also, he didn't want to reveal all his cards from the start. He still had no idea why this guy wanted to fight, or if he had any allies. Better safe than sorry. Biko laughed as he flipped through the air and slammed the staff toward Naruto's side, watching with amusement as his opponent leaned back, letting the weapon pass right over his face. "Quick on your feet, I see." He chuckled and angled the staff to slam it down from a horizontal angle, but was surprised at the moment that the dark-haired boy put a hand to the ground and spun his feet into the air, kicking his staff right beside his hand. Biko watched as the staff was forcefully removed from his hand, an impressed grin splitting his face as he reached forward to grab it out of the air again to resume his advance. Not giving him a chance to do so, Naruto twirled back onto his feet and latched his hand onto Biko's wrist, forcing his hand down toward the ground with a strong grasp. Before Biko could react to the sudden shift in position, Naruto spun around on his feet and sent a powerful roundhouse kick toward his chest. With a small smirk, he brought up his forearm to take the force of the hit, but not before latching onto his staff with his tail. As the foot connected, he winced as the ground cracked beneath him. A shockwave followed as he was sent flying back toward the red gates where, with a grunt, he flipped backward and landed sideways on the gate with a thud. His arm latched around it for support, as he used his free hand to grab his staff again from his tail. "Not bad, you're faster than I thought, but if that's as fast as you can go, then you're shit out of luck," he shouted back and prepared to use the side of the gate as a springboard to fly back into the battle. "So you want speed?" Naruto thought with an amused face. It had been a while since he had let loose, so perhaps he could take it one step further. "Then show me what you got. You asked for it." Biko accepted the challenge and let out a battle cry as he leaped with extreme force, breaking the gate's pillar in half as he thrust his staff forward and shouted, "Extend!" Naruto's eyes widened as Biko blitzed forward, and to top it off he watched as the staff suddenly extended in length at speeds that'd break the sound wall, a move similar to what Old Man Sandaime had used. With a breath to remain calm, he dashed forward to meet his opponent head-on, much to Biko's surprise. Though the surprise turned into confusion and astonishment as the dark-haired boy disappeared from his senses, as if his entire presence had been removed from the timeline. One moment he was there, the other he was gone. Shock split his face, and not even a second later, in a burst of magic, he flashed into existence just below him in a crouched-down position in his ultimate Niji counter. Naruto smirked as he thrust his palm forward into the air. "Time magic, infinite sphere." Naruto chanted as he channeled magic into the palm of his hand only to take the form of a glowing blue sphere that radiated intense magic power. With no time to evade or dodge, Biko's eyes snapped the sphere as it neared his chest. Time magic? Seems like Ophis was right about you, devil. Burst. Naruto thought with a grin as the orb exploded in a similar blue light to which a shock wave greater than any air cannon could produce. Unable to comprehend what happened the moment the light collided with him, Biko felt as if a mountain had been dropped onto his chest as he was sent flying back with blinding speeds, crashing through the gates, splintering them in the process. With a loud groan, a glob of blood exploded out of his mouth. All the air in his lungs had been forcefully removed by the ferocity of the attack as he felt several ribs crack in more places than one. As he rotated out of control, continuing to crash through trees and small shrines, destroying the terrain, Biko spun around and called out into the air, "Flying Nimbus." Upon his command, a golden cloud raced down beneath his face and directed him up into the air and out of harm's way. Finally having stopped, Biko let out a few pants and grabbed onto his chest over the now shattered armor, faint blue traces of light wrapping around his fingers as he channeled senjutsu to heal the worst damage done to his ribcage. "You caught me off guard," he shouted as he watched Naruto appear in a similar burst of speed above him with his fist cocked back, which he blocked with his staff. Ophis was indeed correct. "You're strong," he mumbled through gritted teeth. Naruto flipped off the staff and landed on a nearby tree branch. "And you're quite durable for a monkey. That sphere is no joke. I'd better not get hit with it again, or else I'll lose. Been a while since I felt this kind of rush in a battle. Not even Vala had me this excited." As he felt strength returning to his body, he prepared to use the Nimbus Cloud to go on the offense again, but that was when he felt something approaching. With a loud audible sigh, Biko spun the staff behind his back. Seems like he'd have to pull out of the fight for now at least. Not that he'd admit defeat, this skirmish was far from over, and even if he wasn't the one to finish, Ophis would make someone else do it for him. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he stared the hovering cloud over. Even after being blasted with a sphere that contained severely compressed air that was sent through sped-up time, he could still keep fighting. Letting him go now would be bad, especially since I'm not sure how Ophis is involved. He mused and thrust his palm in the air toward Biko as magic started to gather within his hand. Time magic, Chrono STA. Much to his surprise, the monkey Youkai raised the palm with a loud laugh. "Hold it there, you have my sincerest apologies, devil. Seems like our match must continue another day. Company is arriving, but don't worry, the next time our battle won't be this one-sided," he shouted as the cloud picked up speed and flew over the treelines. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he prepared to leap forward and stop Biko's departure, but out of the corner of his eyes, he saw outlines of people gathering and lowered his palm to his side again. The other Youkai must have come to investigate the commotion. Seems like he'd have to stop the fight as well unless he wanted to cause trouble for his older sister's attempt at making an alliance with the Youkai. As if fighting a monkey Youkai in Kyoto wasn't trouble enough. With a frustrated sigh, he dropped from the tree and onto the grass below. He had wanted to beat Biko and extract some answers out of him, if only to figure out why he was being targeted. He had to make sure they heard of this back home, but for now he'd have to deal with explaining what the commotion was about. As he gazed around him, he saw several people appear from behind the trees. Many of them with unique animal features. Ears, tails, wings. One of them stuck out as the Youkai started gathering around her. She appeared to be a young woman with quite a voluptuous figure, and very long blonde hair with matching eyes. Man, Ero-sennin would have killed to meet her and her two friends. She reminds me a bit of Bachan. Naruto internally chuckled. If he had to take a guess, this would be the Yasaka his sister had mentioned. The leader of the Youkai faction. He must have caused quite the commotion for the leader herself to come out in person. Though it wasn't entirely surprising. After all, shortly after a devil was supposed to arrive, a fight broke out. It made sense for her to assume the said devil would be a part of it. Not that it was wrong, he was very much involved in the fight. And he was winning too, not that that detail would help him. "Am I in trouble?" he eventually asked with a small smile as he raised his hands in a relaxed manner. Several of the Youkai appeared to calm down at the display, but the woman in the middle remained with a stoic expression yet spoke in a polite tone. "Please state your name and business here in Kyoto." He nodded his head and lowered his arms. "Right, where are my manners? I'm Naruto of the House of Citri. My sister Seraphal Leviathan requested my visit here to be allowed." He finished and reached into a pocket and pulled out the slip of paper Seraphal had given him earlier. She stared at him, and then at the paper with a mix of a surprised and a relieved expression before she nodded her head in return. "That'd be correct. My name is Yasaka, and I'm the leader of the Youkai faction here in Kyoto. I do not mean to deny you hospitality, but the commotion in the area was concerning." Naruto gave a small smile. "I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to, but this monkey guy came out of the blue." "Monkey guy?" Yasaka questioned while raising a brow. He nodded. "Yes, he said his name was Biko. I don't quite get what he wants, but he wasn't exactly happy with me. He left when you came though," he replied, keeping some of the details to himself. Sharing the news of Ophis was not something he'd do before at least relaying the information to the Satans first. The blonde woman's eyes widened just a bit, because she thought with a quiet audible hum, "Your answer is acceptable. Mind if I ask why you decided to visit Kyoto?" "Yes, of course." he quickly said. I'm here hoping to meet someone. I suspect he is a fox Youkai named Kurama, but I'm not entirely sure. He didn't know if Kurama had been lucky enough to receive his former name as he had been, but it was worth a shot. Yasaka gave him a blank stare before her lips curled upward into a small smile. He has been quite eager to meet you as well. Chapter 2, Old Friends. Naruto shifted uncomfortably as he knelt down at the traditional-style dining table in Yasaka's private residence. Said Fox Youkai sat and idly sipped on a cup of tea in front of him, not uttering a word. So when will he be here? Naruto eventually asked as he stirred the tea in his cup around. Yasaka hummed and put down her tea, but kept her hands on the warm cup. He should be arriving any minute now. With how Kurama is, I'll assume he was out training. A smile settled on Naruto's lips as he thought of it. Kurama had always been strong, so it made sense that he'd fight to get that strength back. It did make him wonder, which of them would be stronger this time around. He gave a nod. So do you live alone here? It's quite a large estate, but I guess it's only fitting for the leader of the Youkai faction. She gave a polite smile in return. I live here with my daughter. Would you like to meet her? Naruto's eyes widened in surprise as he nodded his head. Sure, I'd love to, but are you sure that's okay? Yasaka tilted her head and thought, why wouldn't it be? The devil scratched the back of his head. Considering everything that has happened, I had my doubts that you'd want a devil of all things to be around your daughter. The Youkai chuckled as the smile returned to her face. I don't need someone to use senjutsu to know that you're a good person, devil or not. I do not sense any malicious intentions associated with meeting my daughter. He waved his hands in front of him. I really don't have any. I was just surprised. Not everyone else back at the gates looked that welcoming at me, he replied with a nervous chuckle. She let out a small sigh as she let go of her teacup, and gathered her hands in her lap. I hope you don't blame them. It's been hard times, and despite your older sister working her absolute hardest to cooperate with us and form an alliance based on friendship, many have trouble letting go of the past. Don't worry, I don't have any hard feelings. It's only natural, but I do hope we can be friends in the future, Naruto replied with honesty. The blonde woman nodded her head in agreement. So do I. Now then. I shall go get my daughter. Please feel free to make yourself at home. Kurama should be here any second now. Actually, there is one thing. What would you say if Kurama theoretically became part of my peerage? Naruto asked slowly. Yasaka stared at his face for a bit. Ultimately it would be up to Kurama to make that decision, but I wonder why you ask? He scratched the back of his head. It's just my sister has been after me in regards to finding people for my peerage. But I only want people I can really trust. And you think that someone could be Kurama? Naruto quickly nodded his head. Yes, I do. She smiled with a soft giggle. As I said, it would be up to Kurama to make that choice. I'll not stand in your way should you two come to an agreement. Now if you'll excuse me. He nodded his head and watched as the fox woman stood and left the room, before he himself got up and walked up to the windows in the room, staring out over the forest that was wrapped around this large estate. If he had to be honest, he was kind of nervous. It had been 19 years since he died, and 19 years since he had last spoken with Kurama. With a loud sigh, he put his elbow in the windowsill and rested his chin in the palm of his hand. As he was almost spaced out, he barely acknowledged the door opening again. With a couple of quick blinks, he lifted his head and prepared himself to greet Yasaka's daughter. But, instead of coming face to face with the young princess of Kyoto, he was met by a singing fist crashing into his cheek that sent him rolling across the floor. What the hell? He shouted and wiped some blood from the corner of his mouth. As he was about to get back to his feet, he saw the outline of a Youkai pouncing on him, a fist cocked back into the air ready to strike his face again. As he noticed exactly who he was dealing with, his eyes widened and he reached up to grab the red kimono he was wearing. What the hell, Kurama? This is the first time we meet in forever, and you punch my damn face? Kurama sneered, showing off his fangs as he prepared to hit again. Don't act like it's for nothing, you damn brat. What are you even talking about, you stupid fox? He sneered back and caught the incoming fist by Kurama's fist, and turned the tables, flinging him to the floor, and pressing a knee to his chest as he roughly grabbed his collar with both hands. Kurama growled and latched onto Naruto's wrists with a firm grip. It's been 25 years, and this is the first time you come? Naruto's eyes narrowed. What the hell are you even talking about? It's only been 19. Bullshit. I've been waiting for you to come around for the past 25 years, he shouted in return. The dark-haired devil's grip lessened. That's impossible. I remember vividly my 19th birthday being celebrated mere months ago. The look in Kurama's eyes softened, as he stared with disbelief. So what you're trying to say is, we arrived at different points in time. The former Jinchuriki nodded his head as he stared at him. It was quite odd. He had always seen Kurama as a fox large enough to step on him. But now he looked different yet a bit similar. He looked to be a young man with unruly dark orange hair that went down to his shoulders, and the same red and slitted eyes he used to have. He wore a traditional red kimono with a forest pattern and ironically had 9 tails again. Seems like it, Naruto mumbled, and stared down awkwardly. The gaze was returned by Kurama as the reborn Bijou snorted. I guess the dimensional gap really does work in weird ways. Sure does. A tick mark formed on the yokai's forehead, but that doesn't excuse you for leaving me hanging here for 19 damn years. What the hell were you so busy with within Devil Town? How in the underworld was I supposed to know you made it here with me? As far as I knew, you were gone for good. What about you? Why didn't you come to find me? Naruto questioned through gritted teeth, as his grip once again tightened on Kurama's kimono. The yokai's brow twitched before he turned his head with a grunt. Like I was able to know you were here too. I first learned of you when I heard the name of Leviathan's brother. Naruto blinked. How did that reveal it was me? My surname isn't Uzumaki anymore. Kurama snorted loudly before he exploded with laughter. Because you're the only individual in existence that would be unlucky enough to be named Fish Cake twice. It's Maelstrom, you stupid fox. The obnoxious laughter soon started to die down. As Naruto let go of the yokai's clothes, there was a moment of silence where they just stared at each other. Much to Naruto's annoyance, he was sent falling to his ass after another swift punch to his chin. With a loud sigh, he jumped to his feet. Okay, now you're starting to piss me off. The fox snorted and crept back onto his feet. Why did you hold back? What are you going on about now? Kurama clenched his fist tightly as he shouted. We died because you held back. Why did you hold back against that damn Uchiha when all he ever tried to do was kill you? A soft smile crept onto his features as he dusted his jacket off. That would be the equivalent of killing you for the number of times you tried taking over my body in the past. The orange-haired man grunted and let his gaze fall to the floor. You better not do it again. If I end up dead because of you a second time, I swear to God I'll kill you myself the third time. Assuming we're looking enough to be reborn a third time. He snickered with a fang-filled grin. Third time's the charm. Naruto shook his head before he looked over his shoulder, and at the door before a grin filled his face, and he spun around on his feet, hurling his fast right into Kurama's nose. Now we're equal, he smirked, much to Kurama's annoyance, though he wasn't able to retort as he held his nose. The dark-haired boy's sweat dropped. Perhaps he had hit too hard. Before he could muse more over it, he heard the door open with a creak behind him. Not good. As he turned around, he came face to face with a Yasaka that had an unbelieving and slightly fearful expression on her face, and a small girl that had to be the faction leader's daughter, that looked more amused than anything else. Naruto and Kurama shared a look before they spoke simultaneously. We can explain. That reminds me, how did you think of coming here? Kurama asked skeptically. Naruto shrugged. It's odd, I just sort of felt the connection we once had for the first time. Kurama raised a brow. When? When I first entered the human world, about 2 years back. Kurama seemed to accept the answer. So what have you been up to all this time? What are you going to do now? Naruto leaned against the railing of the shrine they were now at, his arms folded on top of the wooden surface, his eyes gazing over the waters as the silent nature was all around them, not a single person in sight. They had fairly easily made up a story on the spot to Yasaka, that the two of them had met before, but with no details related to their past, just that they had a run-in a couple of years back, and that was the reason it had taken so long for them to reunite. She seemed to buy it after sensing the atmosphere between them and had let their little skirmish slide. After that, they had left to get a little privacy to talk. Talking about being from another world probably wasn't the best idea to do in the open, so they found a secluded shrine in the middle of the woods and by a lake, a perfect place to not sugarcoat anything. He smiled and turned his head to Kurama, who was beside him, his elbow resting on the railing as well. I tried figuring out what to do. It took me a while to find the motivation to do anything. Kurama frowned. What do you mean, Naruto? He lifted a hand to scratch his head. After Sasuke, and the war, well, more specifically after we died, and had this feeling that we failed. Child of Prophecy failed all along. That was not your fault, it was that damn Uchiha. I never liked those creepy eyes. The fox grunted. He shrugged in return and let out a soft sigh. Anyway, it took me a while. I grew up in the house of Citri, so I didn't quite understand what this world was about. It was only when I met a guy named Serorg that I started understanding the problems of the underworld. Where are you going with this? Naruto smiled and stood up straight. In the underworld, hierarchy is much worse than it was in the elemental nations. I see so many devils, cast aside because of things out of their control. It reminds me a bit of how I grew up in Konoha. Kurama remained silent as he cast his eyes to the floor, since he did know that it was partially his fault. While it was more Obito that was to blame, he was still the one framed and forced to wreak havoc. After a small pause, he continued with his fist punched into his hand. I figured that if anyone knew what to do about it, it'd be me. I did prove everyone wrong back in Konoha, so I'm just gonna have to do it again by becoming the strongest. And this time, I won't lose to anyone. But how will you make them believe you? Naruto smiled a bit. Because of my issues, I didn't get in touch with my magic for a while. I wasn't cast aside to the same degree I was in Konoha, but I was a bit left on my own. It wasn't that bad, but when I see how bad some other people have it, I want to do something about it. A smirk settled on the former Biju's face. You never change. I look forward to seeing you succeed for once, brat. Naruto's lips moved up into a smile as he looked at Kurama. Does that mean you want to work together with me again? The Youkai snorted and folded his arms over his chest while looking away. It's not like I have anything else to do, so we could if you want. The devil's eyes widened as he felt a strange sense of déjà vu washing over him, as he remembered something very important to him. If you want me to lend you strength, I wouldn't mind, Naruto. The large fox's voice boomed, as he stared down at his container's back. You know what, you sure do talk a lot to me lately. I'm glad you want to lend me power, but before you do, there's something I have to say to you. Naruto panted, feeling beyond exhausted. Kurama narrowed his eyes. He turned around, and knelt down on one knee as he stared with determination. Thanks for helping me with the other Madara. All that extra power, that really helped. Don't thank me, it weirds me out. I only did what I did because I'd rather deal with you than with Madara. He paused. Besides, thanks to this cage, I can only give you a tiny bit of chakra. I'm merely interested in watching you fight a little longer, that's right. Just to pass the time. With a tick mark on his forehead, Naruto threw a pointing finger up toward the Biju's face. Hey! Why do you have to get all weird just because I thanked you? And you look mad all the time, you really need to work on your attitude. I mean, you're always like a... He stopped in the middle of his rant, as a huge fist stuck out between the bars, right in front of him. Just hit my chakra with yours. Oh man, chakra tug of war again? He chuckled. Idiot. We don't have to do that now, although it's not like I got anything else to do. So we could if you want. Naruto's face grew serious as he stared at the fist before he hit it with his own. A strange feeling washed over them, as the mindscape was filled with chuckles. Those last words, before they had linked for the first time. Kurama had said them then, but also said them now. He was still the same, and it made him feel relieved. Even if they had lost and lived apart for so long, he was still the same Kurama he had fought both Madara and Kaguya with. Naruto stared down at his hand for a while, before a soft smile spread across his face. He lifted his head and stared at Kurama, before extending his fist in his direction without uttering a word. As the silence started to annoy him, Kurama turned his head back only to be met with the sight of the fist in front of him. Like Naruto, he thought back to that time when they were battling all the other controlled Biju. He grinned slightly and struck out his fist to bump it against Naruto's. Just make sure we don't die this time around, you got it? Naruto grinned sheepishly as he let his hand fall back to his side. I'll do my best to keep us alive this time. Do you know how devil peerages work? His red eyes narrowed a bit. I know a small portion of what it means, but not much. With a nod, Naruto explained the important details. In order to repopulate the Devil Society, high-class devils get a set of evil pieces that look like chess pieces. We essentially use them to reincarnate mostly humans as devils, but it works with Youkai too. Does it have any side effects? Will my abilities be removed, and thus force me to train back to my current level? I'd rather not go through that hell again. Naruto shook his head. You'll be half devil and half Youkai. The change is your lifespan. You'll likely live almost forever as long as you aren't killed. You'll have wings so you can fly, and depending on the piece, you'll get a type of boost that said piece represents. Kurama nodded his head in understanding as he folded his arms again. Which piece did you have in mind then? The dark-haired boy held up his palm as a red chess piece appeared in his hand. After further inspection, it was revealed to be the queen piece. As he watched it, the right side of Kurama's face started to twitch. Do I look like a bitch to you? Naruto gave a nod of his head. As Kurama was about to punch him a new one, Naruto waved his hand dismissively. I think you misunderstand it. Just because it's the queen piece, doesn't mean anything bad. It just symbolizes you're the person in the peerage that is closest and most trusted to me. It's also the most balanced piece. Explain. He hummed and held up the piece to eye level. The queen piece possesses all the characteristics of rooks, knights, and bishops, so they are the most balanced piece as well as the most powerful. Within peerages, queens typically act as their king's second-in-command, overseeing the rest of the peerage. Kurama looked it over for a while before a smile settled on his face. Soon a fit of chuckles erupted from his mouth, turning into a burst of full-blown laughter. As he calmed down he shook his head, and opened his eyes with an amused grin. Seems like I'll be the one to borrow your power, this time around. How the tables have turned, huh? Naruto smirked in return. He gave a snort in return. Don't think I'll let it get to your head. You may be the master of this peerage, but I'll keep you on your toes. No chance of getting weak or unfocused with me around, got it? Naruto smiled. Just as before, I'll count on you and put my trust in you. Kurama cracked his knuckles. So how are you gonna do it? You gonna chant a spell or something like that? Something like that. Alright, open the front of your kimono for me. The fox raised a brow. Didn't know you swung that way. He laughed and pulled the fabric open to reveal his bare skin. If you don't shut up I'm gonna kick your ass as I did with the monkey guy. Naruto groaned and held up the queen piece, as it slowly started to levitate out of his hand. Kurama rolled his eyes, as he watched the evil piece float in the air between them. Alright, here goes nothing. Naruto grinned and held up his hand behind the queen piece. In the name of Naruto Citri, I hereby bestow you, Kurama, the queen piece of my peerage. Become a servant of me, and live your life as the queen of my peerage. The fox's red eyes watched with interest as the queen piece started flying in his direction, before disappearing into his chest. A faint red glow started to form around him, as he not only felt his strength growing at a quick rate, but also a sense of fatigue washing over him. Okay, that's wicked, he finally grunted as the light started to die down, but the feeling of power flowing through him continued to grow until it stopped and he felt tired. He looked around for a bit before turning to Naruto. Did it work? Just as he asked that question, a pair of pitch-black wings sprouted from his back and he looked back with wide eyes. Alright, scrap wicked, this is outright creepy. As Naruto was about to retort, something started to feel off. A dark mist started to spread over the shrine's floor as his body started to feel weak. And he wasn't the only one. As the mist got to Kurama, the wings retracted and he fell down to one knee as he latched onto his chest with his clawed hand. What the hell is this? You didn't say it would hurt like this. This isn't me, Naruto groaned and clenched one eye shut. It felt as if was burning inside out, but this wasn't the only problem. Around the shrine, it was as if a dark veil spilled around them. It was without a doubt daytime outside, but in here it looked like dusk. From what he could gather, there was only one explanation. Someone had attacked them and put up a barrier. But the better question was who? My, how sweet. Who knows, I might shed a tear. Should I leave? I don't want to ruin the king and queen's honeymoon. A voice laughed from above. Naruto lifted his head, as he came face to face with a dark-haired woman laying across one of the support beams holding up to the upper floor of the shrine. It didn't take him long to figure out who it was, because he had thought about her several times, or specifically, the details about her and her senjutsu. She was a young and without a doubt a beautiful woman, with long black hair and amber eyes. She was clad in a kimono and had a pair of cat ears and two tails to top it off. Kuroka, I presume? He chuckled and placed a hand on the floor. The cat woman tilted her head with an amused grin. Seems like my reputation precedes me, but so does yours. That it does, he groaned, as a faint blue light emitted from around the palm of his hand. With a deep breath, he channeled his magic into the air around him and Kurama, and much to both yokai's surprise, the mist started to retract from their position. The mist was still filling the rest of the shrine, but this safe zone should keep them out of the harm of whatever it was doing to them. With a cough into his hand, Naruto stood to his feet and put a hand on Kurama's shoulder. Time magic, restore, he chanted, as the blue light wrapped around him and Kurama, as the effects of the mist started to dissipate. The woman's eyes widened a bit. Before the calm look she had worn before returned, I have to admit I'm both surprised and impressed. This mist is pure poison for devil and yokai alike, but I shouldn't expect less of someone in Ofa's favor. As Kurama rose to his feet again, he readjusted his kimono. Naruto, who is this crazy chick? Is she a friend of yours? Considering she was in the middle of poisoning us, I'd say no. Naruto's sweat dropped. Kurama rolled his eyes. Not like you haven't called other sick people that tried to kill us friends before. Touche, he grunted before he turned back to Kuroka. So what do you want? You speak of Office. That must mean you're with that Biko guy. Kuroka sat up on the support beam and crossed her legs with a grin. Indeed I am. On behalf of Office, we would like to invite you to join the ranks of the Cows Brigade. Both Biko and myself are members, and with your display of strength you'd fit right in. And pray to tell, why would I ever do that? That Biko guy seemed like a nut job. The dark-haired woman's ears twitched as her tails swayed lightly behind her. If you join the Cows Brigade, we'll help you with what you want. That's the deal. Biko likes to fight. Office granted him the power to do so with whoever he should deem fit. As she voiced interest in you, well, you know how the rest goes. Naruto raised a brow and crossed his arms over his chest. And what would you have to offer me? Kuroka tilted her head down. Power, strength. You have a goal, right? For that goal you'll need tremendous strength. Office can help with that. And how would you know what I want? She grinned and gave him a slight wink. You could say I was naughty enough to listen in on your conversation. I know that you want to be the strongest. Kurama turned to Naruto. You seem to know who she is. What the hell is going on here? Naruto turned to Kurama, but kept an eye on Kuroka to make sure she wouldn't try anything funny. Her name is Kuroka. She is an S-class stray devil that killed her master. So she is just like the Uchiha brat? Didn't he kill the snake after his use for him was done? Kurama questioned. The Citri shrugged calmly. No idea. The story just says that she went crazy on senjutsu. Killed her king, and then left. Seems like she joined a nut job group afterward. Speaking of me like I'm not here is a pretty rude pretty boy. Said woman hissed with a mild hint of annoyance in her gaze. Naruto ignored the remark, and switched his eyes to Kurama. That's pretty much it. The fox Youkai narrowed his eyes as he watched the woman. She may be odd, but there was something off about this. He started to channel his own senjutsu, with his eyes radiating a small glow as he watched her over. After a while, they turned back to normal and he looked away from Naruto and pointed an accusing finger in her direction. I don't know exactly who you're trying to fool, but it won't work on me. Kuroka's eyes narrowed as she stood up from her seated spot. I'm surprised you're able to utilize senjutsu, but I don't recall you being part of the conversation, Fox. The offer was extended to the Citri, not to you. Kurama rolled his eyes. The story says you went nuts on senjutsu, isn't that right? Well, I don't buy it. What do you mean, Kurama? Naruto asked as he watched the exchange curiously. The newly reincarnated devil turned to Naruto. Losing control of senjutsu is a one-way ticket to becoming a host of negativity, something that she's lacking. Reminds me of that older Uchiha. Naruto's eyes widened a bit as he switched his gaze back up to Kuroka, who looked irate. Could this really be true? Then there was a serious problem. So what do you think happened? He finally asked. The fox shrugged his shoulders exaggeratedly. The hell if I know, but I for sure know that you should know I'm right. What those frogs taught you should prove that much. And not only that, he did also remember that Kurama had more than enough experience picking up on emotions. Hell, his chakra cloak alone gave Naruto that ability. He could even sense the disguised Setsu apart from the allied forces due to his powers. Finally, he shot his glance in the criminal's direction. I believe what my friend here says, so spill it. What's the real deal, or are you gonna feed us another lie? I'm not obligated to tell you anything, and it doesn't involve you. I'll ask again, Naruto Citri, will you accept the offer to join the ranks of Office and get the power you desire in return? Kuroka snorted at first but then smiled as she looked at the dark-haired boy. Naruto raised a brow and pocketed his hands. I ain't saying shit before I get a reason. I won't trust anything else you say otherwise. And should I say no? A smirk spread his face as he shrugged his shoulders, and looked at her with a determined expression. Look. Listen. Kurama's sweat dropped. Oh boy, here he goes again. Kuroka raised an amused yet intrigued brow. What is it? Either you tell me what your deal is, and then I'll think about the offer. Or you can deny what Kurama said, and you can tell Office where to shove it. Only you would pick a fight with Office. Naruto. Kurama internally sighed as he watched Naruto walk over and put a hand on his shoulder. Think about it. If Office is that intrigued with me, it'd be in your best interest to give me the truth. Hell, we may even become friends. He chuckled and started to channel his magic. If she wasn't amused before, she certainly was now, friends. What gave you the idea that I wanted that? Well, you haven't really attacked us. And since Biko attacked me for a personal reason, you must have come here for a reason of your own as well. He finished, and just like that, their bodies disappeared before her very eyes. All she managed to see was their body dissipating into blue flashes of light before all traces of them disappeared. Kuroka watched the spot they had stood in for a while before a grin spread across her features and her poison mist dissipated along with the barrier. Biko was right. This one is indeed interesting. Chapter 3. Return to the Underworld. It had been a week since Naruto arrived in Kyoto. A week since he had met Kurama along with the run-in with Kuroka. The majority of the time had been spent catching up, and it was safe to say that Kurama was beyond amused that Naruto had gone from first being born as a nobody with nothing, to a high-class devil that grew up in a luxurious mansion. How the tables had turned. The Youkai had started accepting the presents after the first few days. Well, at least a bit more. They were still wary of him, but after they saw how good friends he was with Kurama already, they were at least willing to talk in a friendly manner with him. They were currently still in Kyoto, but with his schedule, he was planning on returning to the underworld soon. But first, a friendly spar was in order. So at the moment they were in a secluded section of the forest with a barrier to conceal their activities. Naruto could be seen with a grin on his face as he rushed across the green forest floor, trading blow for blow with his newest and first peerage member. With a laugh, he spun through the air and sent a kick toward Kurama's head, which the Youkai blocked with his forearm. Each blow got increasingly heavier and faster, as they picked up the pace. Though none of them had yet to land a hit on the other, every punch and kick was parried or evaded, and every time they clashed, a powerful shockwave swept across the grass and leaves. The mere sound of the power would be enough for ordinary people to think there were chain explosions going off in the woods. Thank Satan for barriers. Kurama grinned as he pushed the leg away and tried to sweep the dark-haired opponent off his feet, to which Naruto flipped backward and out of the way. Not giving him a chance to catch his breath, Naruto ran forward and ducked under a strong right hook, sending his fist flying toward Kurama's chest. With a wide smirk, the newly reincarnated devil caught Naruto's wrist before it could land, and used this new position to slam his fist up toward his opponent's stomach with all the strength he could muster. Naruto steadied his footing as he raised his hand, catching the incoming fist with the palm of his hand, but the mere force behind it was enough to make his muscles feel the strain throughout his arm. They stood for a while and tried to overpower the other, a struggle that was in Kurama's favor. But as the full-blooded devil began to feel his footing slip, he threw the fist to the side, knelt down, and swept a leg into the side of Kurama's knee. The Youkai grunted as he was forced to kneel down, allowing Naruto the opportunity to leap backward. Kurama had to chuckle as he rose back to his feet. It's good to see you haven't gotten weak upon dying, he complimented and cracked his knuckles. Naruto landed on his feet again and dusted his jacket off. I could say the same to you, he shouted back. Despite how short the fight had been so far, he could already tell the key differences in their fighting styles. Kurama easily had the advantage in strength, but he was fast enough to render that advantage null. Kurama's fist certainly hurt a lot more than his own did, but the number of attacks he could manage in comparison was greater. With that taken into consideration, they were equally balanced so far. Not feeling finished yet, the fox ran forward with a fist cocked behind his head. He slammed it into the ground as the dirt exploded up into a small cloud. Naruto's eyes widened at the distraction as he saw a fist escape out through the debris in the air. He quickly fell to his knees and leaned backward, watching the fist graze past his face. Rotating around, he placed his palm on the ground and sent a roundhouse kick at Kurama's midsection. Unable to see it coming from his own makeshift smokescreen, Kurama coughed in surprise as some of the air was knocked out of his lungs. Not bad, kid. He smirked and prepared himself for the attacks that would undoubtedly follow. And just as expected, Naruto rotated out of the dirt and through the air as he sent two quick kicks from above to Kurama's chest that he managed to parry to the side. He snickered and leaped back into the air as he spread his tails out. Why don't we take this to the next level? He asked with a large grin, as orbs of bluish-green fire blazed into existence in front of each of his tails. Naruto's eyes widened a bit, before he smirked in return. So this is the foxfire I've heard so much about. I better not get hit by that, he thought, and took a step back, preparing to let loose a little. Kurama took this as an acknowledgement and thrust his palm forward, whereupon the fireballs bolted forward, spiraling through the air whilst leaving behind a blue trail of embers in the air. The fire roared, lighting up the ground and torching the grass without even being in direct contact. With a surprised look, Naruto quickly spread out his arms and muttered the simple sentence, "Time magic, chronostasis." Confused and slightly scared at the sight of Naruto just opening his arms up to the attack, Kurama was prepared to distinguish the attack before surprise overtook him and his eyes widened in an instant. Every fireball had stopped in place. Naruto felt the heat of the air hit his face and rushed through his clothes as blue spheres with orbiting rings filled with Roman numerals encased the foxfire, pausing their advance a mere meter away from him. "Well, what the hell is that?" Kurama suddenly asked, a mixed hint of both astonishment and disappointment in his tone as he had kind of hoped they'd hit. With a chuckle, Naruto let his left hand fall to his side and twisted his right in the air, causing the blue spheres to dissipate into nothingness alongside the bluish-green flames within them. "My inherent magic ability has the affinity of time itself, and this was a stasis spell, in which I can forward or reverse the time of whatever is trapped inside." A sweat drop slid down Kurama's forehead as he clenched his fist. Naruto was about to ask if he was okay but was caught off guard as the queen of his peerage roared out laughing whilst clutching his stomach. "You never cease to surprise me, Naruto," he started. As he calmed down slightly, "The boy who ran out of time got the affinity for time itself." A sheepish chuckle escaped his lips as he ran a hand through his dark locks. "It's not like I do it on purpose." Kurama kept laughing for a bit before he slammed his fist to his palm, with a determined look. "If that's the case, I'll just have to kick your ass faster than you can stop time. What do you say? Care to find out who is stronger? Isn't this what we've tried determining this entire time?" Naruto laughed and crouched down, preparing to take off. The fox snorted loudly. "Come on, we both know we've been holding back since the start. Or are you just too much of a coward?" Naruto's brow twitched. "Say that again once I've won. You'll try." Kurama quickly laughed and clapped his hands together, before slamming his fist to the earth. Grasping his forearm as it hit the dirt, a magic circle appeared beneath his feet as a ring of blue flames exploded from the ground around him. The young devil grinned and held up his palm. "Time magic, infinite sphere!" he shouted as the blue orb he had used to send Biko flying spun into existence in his hand. Kurama had to acknowledge the sheer magic power radiating through the air as he prepared to raise the ring of flames into a protective dome. Before their attacks could collide, a loud cough from the side of the clearing caught their attention. Naruto raised a brow as he turned his head to spot the blonde leader of the Youkai faction walking over with her daughter in tow, as he slowly dispersed the magic whilst Kurama cancelled the ring of flames orbiting around him. Yasaka chuckled as she stopped in between them. "As much as I enjoy seeing the two of you getting along so well, I'll have to ask the both of you to refrain from burning down my forests. Barrier or not, such a forest fire won't be easy to cover up." The orange-haired man raised a brow. "You're over-exaggerating." She raised a brow. "Am I really now? Your foxfire burns several times hotter than any ordinary flame, and your master uses a spell that contains condensed air. Or did I sense it wrong, Naruto-san?" Naruto blinked and scratched his neck. "You've hit the nail on the head actually." She gave a nod of confirmation. "So tell me, will I have to explain what happens when such a quantity of air does when it comes in contact with such powerful flames?" Kurama's cheeks flared up a bit as he crossed his arms over his chest, but he decided not to answer. Yasaka had to stop a smirk from forming on her lips. "Thought so, regardless. I see that you picked a strong king to follow. I hope this event will be able to help us form a friendship in the future." Naruto could only nod in agreement to that, though he had actually never thought about it that way. He may have been more knowledgeable in politics this time around because of his sister being a Satan, but all he had really thought about was getting his friend back. "Whatever, I'm clearly stronger. I was inches from kicking his ass back to where he came from." Kurama grunted, with a mild smirk. She had been used to this behavior from Kurama, so in order to mess with him, she chuckled and shot a glance in the young devil's direction. "That's so? From where I stood, I thought our guest was winning. Not that it was wrong, there was something different about this devil. And she'd have loved to find out more about it, but she did prefer her forests intact instead." Kurama had to calm down his annoyance as his brow twitched dangerously, and was only further irritated by the sound of Naruto's obnoxious laughter at the revelation. The young girl that stood beside her mother couldn't help but comment on the look on her uncle figure's face. "I'd have to agree with my mother." Naruto couldn't see if the girl was smirking or not from his position, but Kurama almost deflated like a balloon, which was making his day. It was interactions like this that really did make him wonder if he made the right choice when he turned Kurama into a part of his peerage. Sure, they had fought a war together and died together, but he seemed content here. Accepted and, despite the teasing, happy. His new life here was vastly different from the elemental nations, and he was starting to wonder if taking Kurama away from this would be a good idea. Eventually, Kunu turned to face their guest, and with a curious expression asked, "So how long will you stay?" At that question, even Kurama had his eyes pointed at him. He scratched the back of his head. "I planned on going back this evening." "So soon?" Yasaka asked with a mild frown. With a small frown he nodded. "Yeah, I have to go back. My sister might send someone to look for me if I don't, and I also have matters I need to attend to, though with your permission I'd love to come to visit again." Kunu smiled as she stared at him. "You better." "Kunu?" Yasaka asked as she watched her daughter with interest. The young girl gave a small chuckle. After all, you can't say you like staying in Kyoto before you've had the full tour. Naruto had to blink as he analyzed those words. He couldn't stop himself from smiling. With your mom's permission, I'll come back soon. Then you can show me around if you want. Kunu looked up expectantly at her mother, which Chisaka had to adore. Even if she was practically treated like a princess, her childish innocence warmed her heart. The older woman nodded her head in the devil's direction. As long as you let me know ahead of time, I see no issue. Now I'll have to leave, but please come by for dinner before you depart. Naruto gave a small mock salute, as he watched the two Youkai women leave the clearing. Kurama took this as his cue to walk over. As he crossed his arms over his chest, Kunu has taken a liking to you. She has? He rolled his eyes. Don't tell me you haven't noticed. It's not exactly hard to see. It reminds me of how that brat Konohamaru looked at you. Naruto barked out laughing, except she is much more well-behaved than Konohamaru ever was. Kurama snickered, that's for sure. If she behaved like that brat, I'd have gone off the map ages ago. You're quite close, aren't you? Naruto asked in a soft tone. The fox raised a brow before he turned his gaze away with a shrug. I don't exactly kiss ass. So she took my attitude differently than most would. Naruto turned to look at him. What do you mean? He turned back to meet the gaze. She is practically a princess. The amount of respect she has shown is way too much for a child if you asked me. I don't kiss ass, no matter who they are, so she seemed to like that. So she likes you because you treat her differently? Kurama shrugged, perhaps, though I don't think she minds her treatment because she knows how important her mom is. But kids get curious about new things, so we ended up spending some time together. I see, Naruto thought out loud as he crouched down and watched the forest around him, seemingly getting deep in thought. With a snort, Kurama tapped his foot against the devil's leg. What are you thinking about? It looks painful. Naruto had to roll his eyes, before he smiled slightly. You sure you want to come with me? You can stay here if you want. What the hell is that supposed to mean? He closed his eyes for a bit, as he started plucking strands of grass idly. You seem content here. Compared to how life was in the elemental nations for you, this place must be amazing. I don't want to drag you away, just because of a bond we once had. Kurama's eyes narrowed slightly as he placed a foot on the dark-haired boy's back and pushed him down to the ground, as he towered above him. Do you think I spent the last 25 years waiting for you to appear, just to be left behind? Stupid Ningen. Naruto's eyes widened slightly before he chuckled. With a shake of his head, he rose back to his feet and dusted his clothes off. Well, technically I'm a devil now. You may have to rethink those insults on the road. He rolled his eyes in return. Congratulations. You have finally begun to touch upon my reputation. Now get your stupid ass moving, we probably got work to do, don't we? As he readjusted his jacket, Naruto stuck his hands inside his pockets. Yeah, I need to have a conversation with my sister. That thing with Kuroka is unsettling me. How so? He turned to watch his companion. What exactly did you mean when you said you felt no malice from her? Kurama raised a brow. Exactly what I said. I know Senjutsu like the back of my hand. There was no negativity or malice coming off her. Furthermore, she wasn't morphed into some kind of creature, so it's not like she lost control of her demonic powers either. She seemed perfectly fine. Naruto hummed a bit as he started to talk toward the exit of the woods with Kurama beside him. I can't be the only one that thinks something is off about this. You said the vibe she gave off was like Itachi, didn't you? He nodded. Yeah, that guy acted like he was on drugs too, but when I sensed him after he got reanimated, it was beyond obvious it had all been a plot. It gives me the same vibe this time, though I have no idea what her deal is. Naruto nodded his head thoughtfully. He'd have to ask his sister about this. Perhaps she could investigate it. Part of him wasn't surprised that something like this had been unknown. The amount of skilled senjutsu users was few and far in between. Not to say that most of them had likely been killed off in the genocides. Without Kurama having been there, he'd likely not even have noticed it himself. He'd have to think more on this. There was only so little they could do on their own. But for now, he'd just enjoy a hopefully peaceful dinner with the leader of the Youkai faction. He smiled with amusement. His sister would love to hear about this when he got home, and he could already see the expression on her face. Seriously? You mean to tell me that you, somebody that used to be a homeless bum, grew up in a place like this? Kurama's voice echoed in the large hallways of the Citri Manor as he gazed up and down the walls, feeling immensely out of place. Naruto had to chuckle at his partner's reaction as he scratched the back of his head with a sheepish grin. Yeah, home sweet home. I lived down at the end of the mansion, ended up moving there after a while because my younger sister wanted privacy, to talk with her friend. Plus she was severely displeased whenever I caught something she said through the door. Kurama raised a brow. You eavesdropped on your own sister? Didn't know you had that kink. With a twitching brow, Naruto raised his hand with a loud sigh. As much as she wants to say I wasn't. Trust me, I would rather not. But you try not overhearing Ino talking with Sakura if a shade or two quieter. The Youkai snorted with laughter. You sure you still couldn't hear it from your new room? Naruto had to sigh for what had to be the 100th time. I could vividly hear it echoing down the hallways. Seriously, at times I studied in the cellar because they were so obnoxious. So where is she now? Kurama asked next. With a thoughtful look, Naruto turned down another corridor. She lives in Ko now. In fact, both of them do. They attend a normal school, I think they're third years now. So you have this entire place to yourself? Naruto shook his head. Nah, my new parents live here along with the staff. My sister is the Leviathan, so she pretty much has a damn castle for herself and whoever serves her. Kurama looked intrigued. You don't speak of these parents with as much affection. He shrugged and dug his hands into his pockets. It's not that I dislike them. I'm just indifferent. As I said, I had a hard time coping with what happened in the past, and it took me a while to get in touch with my magic, so I guess you can say I was a bit overlooked, but it's not like I was neglected in any way. I see, Kurama hummed in return. Will we be meeting them? He shook his head. Nah, they're busy people. We rarely talk either way, but I try to stay polite and greet them when we do see each other. I'm much closer with my sisters though, as much as Sona hates to admit it. She does? Why is that? Naruto was about to respond, but when he heard the very familiar yell of Narutan in front of him, he just smiled and pointed a thumb in the direction of the rapidly approaching raven-haired girl. That's why. He quickly turned around as he was wrapped up in a bone-crushing hug. It was surprising, such a small girl was about to snap him in half. No wonder she was the Leviathan. His entire face turned blue as he tapped her on the back. Can't breath. Seraphol blinked as she let him drop back to the floor, and blushed in slight embarrassment as she watched him try to catch his break as the color returned to his face. Sorry about that. So how did it go? I just got word from Kyoto. They say the visit was pleasant. Naruto readjusted his jacket as Kurama watched on with great amusement. It went pretty well actually. She quickly nodded with a pleased smile, before her expression turned from glee to surprise as she saw someone standing behind him. Who's this? The dark-haired boy blinked and turned to Kurama. Oh right, no reason to hide your tails and ears now that we're back in the underworld. He grinned and turned back to his sister. Anyhow, this is Kurama. The Youkai raised his hand in a greeting as his 9 tails sprouted from his tailbone, and he popped up on top of his head. A look of nervousness spread across his face as he watched the short girl's eyes practically glow with recognition. If Naruto would describe the look in Kurama's eyes as he glanced over at him with a sweat-covered face, it would be help me, but what would be the fun in that? You actually did it. Oh man, I knew sending you to Kyoto was a good idea. Seraphol coughed and tried maintaining a calmer posture, but everyone present could see she was straining herself as she reached her hand out. Hi there. I'm Seraphol Leviathan and Naruto's favorite sister. Pleased to meet you. Kurama's brow twitched as he reached out to grab the girl's hand. Pleasure's all mine. He managed to grumble out before he leaned over to Naruto and hit his mouth with the back of his hand. Are both your sisters this crazy? Naruto quickly shushed him as he watched the encounter. Seraphol eventually stepped back and nodded her head. I see that you're a fox Youkai. I'm happy that you're in my brother's peerage. He has been a bit of a late bloomer, so he first started looking for members recently. Kurama snickered before he rested his elbow on Naruto's shoulder. Someone has to make sure this guy stays out of trouble. Naruto had to roll his eye as he pushed the elbow off him. If anyone gotta make sure someone stays out of trouble here, it's me, you stupid kitsune. With a cough into her hand, Seraphol broke off the almost verbal fight. Anyhow, I hope this will help our possible friendship in the future. We're very happy to have you, Kurama-kun. The fox raised a brow as he crossed his arms. Yeah, whatever, me too. Hooray for friendship. As he felt an elbow slam into his side, he turned to watch Naruto's sweating face. What? You really don't have manners, do you? Kurama rolled his eyes. Is there a point to changing awesome? You should take notes, you ungrateful brat. The raven-haired teen rubbed his forehead. Whatever, just don't come screaming for help when your attitude has the 4 Satans sending you to death row. Kurama gulped with a slight sweat drop. Whatever. Seraphol watched the interactions with clear amusement as she giggled behind her hand. It looked like this friendship would work out just fine. It already seemed like the two had known each other forever. I don't want to be rude, but I should probably get back to work. Once again, a pleasure to meet you, Kurama. Naruto, please go find more peerage members. You seem to have an eye for the interesting ones. She spoke with a happy tone. Naruto nodded his head before something came to mind and he raised his hand for her to stop. Actually, I have something important I need to talk to you about. Do you have time? She tilted her head in confusion but nodded her head as he led them down to her office. Her office, despite being rarely used, was quite spacious, and she took a seat behind her desk as she watched the two with curiosity. So, what is it? You're not in trouble, are you? He quickly waved his hands dismissively. Oh no, or well, not sure. A frown settled on her face. Naruto. With a sigh, he sat down as Kurama leaned up against the wall behind him. Something happened when I got to Kyoto. I was attacked by the Monkey King, Biko. At first, it seemed like he just wanted a fight, but that's when we ran into someone new. Seraphol looked more serious now. Getting in a fight with the Youkai the moment you got to Kyoto was bad, but this was Biko. He had gone missing from his mountain some time ago. Who did you run into? Kuroka, he answered simply. Her eyes widened slightly as she in an instant had a more serious attitude. Did she hurt you? He shook his head. No, but she did give me an invitation extended on behalf of Ophis. If she hadn't looked serious before, she sure did now. Did you see Ophis? He had to shake his head again. No, all I got was an offer to join something called the Cows Brigade. She said that in exchange for joining, Ophis would grant me what I want, though it sounds like what a terrorist group would be. That it does, I'll have to bring this to the other Satans as soon as possible. One can only wonder what the likes of Ophis need with people like you, Biko, And Kuroka? She wondered. Naruto folded his hands in his lap as he crossed his legs. I need to talk to you about her too. Something is unsettling me. Seraphol leaned back in her chair, not quite used to the look in her brother's eyes. What about her? He shot a glance back to Kurama, who just gave him a nod. The moment Kurama joined my peerage, she approached me with the offer, as I said. The thing that I discovered after due to Kurama's skill in senjutsu is what makes me a bit nervous. If she had been surprised before, she certainly was now. The people that were able to use senjutsu were very few, and her brother had managed to get one into his peerage. What did you find out? Naruto waved a hand to Kurama, who took a step forward to stand beside Naruto's chair. The fact of the matter is quite simple. She is lying. Seraphol looked on with an unchanging expression. Explain. He nodded and looked in between the siblings before he sighed. Senjutsu is able to pick on the emotions of people. The stories go that she went nuts using senjutsu. But there are two simple things we all can agree on. First, if you lose control of your demonic power, you're bound to morph into some kind of creature, which she didn't. And the other? Kurama looked on with a calm expression. If you lose control of senjutsu, it means that you become a host of negativity. If what happened to her should be true, then she'd be radiating negativity. But she wasn't. I didn't sense an ounce of malice rolling off her, or anything related. Nor was she morphed into some kind of beast. Something is off. Seraphol looked at her brother, and something changed in her eyes. I'll have to have a meeting with the Satans about this. Stay on standby, both of you. With these things coming into the light, we may need to debrief you. Naruto nodded his head as he stood up. Sarane? The girl looked a bit surprised as she gazed up at her brother. What is it? He looked a bit uncertain. You know something, don't you? She sighed with an apologetic smile. I can neither confirm nor deny that. But I can say everything will make a lot more sense soon. Please believe me. With a sigh, he nodded his head. She had never given him reason to not believe her before, so he'd trust her words. Though something felt certain, he had touched upon something that was supposed to be buried. Now the question was, what could it be? As the sun disappeared in the distance, she sat on top of a boulder with her kimono and dark locks swaying hypnotically in the wind. Her amber eyes gazed out into the horizon, as she waited for her accomplice to join her. Despite the turn of events, she wasn't disappointed. No, she was more intrigued than anything else. It seems like you had no luck. A voice called from behind her. Or did you out, Kuroka? She snorted a bit and turned her head to watch him. You never get tired out of the cat puns, do you, Biko? What's life without a bit of comedy? He grinned and took a seat in the shade of the boulder she was seated upon. With a roll of her eyes, she watched him from the corner of her eyes. To answer your question, then no, there was no luck. Though I won't let that stop me. Biko raised an amused brow as he rubbed his hand. Oh, you going back for seconds? That's surprising. How so? He shrugged and rested his back against the boulder. Not like you to show any interest in our new recruits. Yet you seem interested in this one. She remained silent for a bit before a chuckle escaped her lips, which turned up into a small smirk. Perhaps not, but none of the other recruits were like this one. He's unique. Oh ho? You seemed captivated. Should I order a table for two? He snickered. With a sigh aimed at his obnoxiousness, she dropped down to the ground. As I said, he's unique. May I ask why you're so interested? For me it's simple. He's strong, and I want to beat him. She watched him but didn't feel like the real reason she wanted to go meet him again. Though, there was another part of him that kept her interest up. Well, no one has ever told Ophis where to shove it before. Chapter 4. The cat's out the bag. Naruto yawned as he waltzed through the halls leading to the great devil Lucifer's office. One thing he never failed to be amused over was how no matter what place he was in, the most powerful person always had an office. In this case, it was even more hilarious. A man with that much power to literally obliterate almost anything he wanted had a desk. Oh well, that was beside the point. He was on his way there to have a meeting with him, and he highly suspected it was because of the talk he had with Seraphol a couple of days prior. It had been a few days since he arrived back in the underworld with Kurama, and to say that the fox had taken great advantage of the luxuries living in a mansion provided would be an understatement. The first thing he had seen Kurama do after they had parted for the night when they had arrived was in the morning when the orange-haired man had laid on the balcony of his room with a maid hand feeding him grapes. It was like something out of a movie. He had never laughed that hard since being reborn into this universe, though he was glad he was enjoying himself. It certainly had to be a lot better than living in a mindscape that resembled a sewer, so he didn't comment too much on it. Well, not more than he had to. Kurama's annoyance was still very entertaining, just like it had always been. With a small sigh, he raised his hand to knock on the door and waited a few seconds before he got the affirmative to enter, which he did. As he entered the devil's office, he was immediately taken back by how comfy it all seemed. He most certainly didn't expect couches to sit in. It was definitely much nicer than what the Hokage's office had been like. Ah, Naruto, I'm happy you agreed to meet with me on such short notice. The dark-haired boy blinked as he turned to watch the red-haired man approaching him. He was clad in a pretty formal attire compared to the usual armor he was seen wearing in public. Since his younger sister was friends with Lucifer's sister, he had met the man before, but he never stopped feeling a bit uncomfortable in his presence. In his opinion, the redhead was way too easygoing for his own good, so he never knew when to be formal and when not to. Unsure of whether or not to bow, he raised his hand in an awkward wave. You know what they say, if Lucifer calls then you answer. Surzex chuckled a bit as he motioned for him to follow. Still, with the recent events coming into the light, you must have been using a lot of time to reflect on them. Naruto followed after him and watched as the powerful being sat down on one of the couches, and signaled for him to sit on the one across from him, which he did. The redhead took a second to get comfortable, and gathered his hands in his lap. Do you have any idea why I wish to talk with you? He shook his head slowly. Not sure, but I guess it has to do with what I told my sister. Taking that as his cue to continue, Surzex cleared his throat. Partially yes, we're still working on the details of what you informed us of. Before I continue, I'd like to say we're grateful. Had we learned of this sooner, there may have been consequences we'd rather avoid. What type of consequences? Naruto asked with a hint of worry in his voice. Surzex waved his hands dismissively. Not any we need to worry about at the moment, but it's always good to be aware of when beings like Ophis are making plans. It could go south, so being prepared is essential. He couldn't disagree with that. While the problems the Akatsuki caused in his old life were quite severe, he didn't want to think about how bad it could have gotten if Jiraiya hadn't been made aware when he did. Yeah, I guess that's true. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Surzex nodded. Right. From what I understand, you came into contact with Kuroka, and your newest addition to your peerage was able to reveal some truths with his use of senjutsu, correct? By the way, congratulations on finding a member for your peerage. Your sister was ecstatic about it. Thank you, I think. He scratched the back of his head. Yeah, Kurama called bullshit on what the stories say about her. Unable to hold back an amused look at the choice of words, Surzex intertwined his fingers. It's possible dangerous territory you're in. So for you to be able to tread carefully about your next moves should you run into her again, I wish to give you a bit of context. For free? He added as a joke, but when Surzex just smirked he instantly knew the man was up to something. Surzex leaned back in his seat. Well, I won't say that the information has a price, but I do hope you'll help me with a favor in return. Sure, I don't think I could say no with a good conscience. He chuckled. The redhead just smiled with a satisfied nod of his head. With the news of Ophis and this cow's brigade, I had hoped you'd perhaps take residence in Ko for the time being, both for Ria's sake, and also for Sona's. Just as a safety precaution. If you're telling me to go attend school, then I'll say no. I hate academics. Naruto groaned with a mild headache returning as the memories of the Shinobi Academy resurfaced. Surzex had to hold back a laugh of amusement. I'll not have you attend school, but perhaps as a club supervisor. Just to keep you in the loop, you won't have to do anything remotely close to homework, rest assured of that. You have my word. Then I don't see why not. Any other reason you want me to go? Or anything else really? He took a moment to think. Well, there's a potential thing. This is a more personal favor from Surzex Gremory, instead of Surzex Lucifer. My sister has a member in her peerage. His name is Gasper. Naruto blinked, unsure of what it was supposed to mean. I'll be blunt, Gasper possesses a scared gear. Specifically the Forbidden Bellevue. He has time powers, and as it stands right now, you're a perfect candidate to teach him how to control this power. Rias has some issues with controlling him, so he is sealed away for now. I won't ask you directly to teach him, since that should be her place to do so. I just want you to keep it in mind. Naruto's eyes widened at that. He didn't exactly consider himself teacher material, but if he was the best candidate, he'd at least be open toward it. Got it. If Rias asks, I'll hear her out. Surzex gave a pleased nod of his head. Thank you. Now, the second thing. I want you to try and stay out of their way as much as possible. Naruto almost doubled over in surprise. How could he ask him to help her, and stay out of her way at the same time? The Devil King laughed slightly. I see that you're confused. Let me clarify my request. I wish for Rias and the others, as well as Sona, to grow naturally on their own. So while you can help them, I do not wish for you to fix their problems for them unless it's a critical scenario. The dark-haired boy made an O shape with his mouth out of realization. Oh, I get it now. So I can teach, but not solve their problems. That makes sense. I'll keep that in mind. After further thought, he realized he had probably just been made into a makeshift academy teacher. Surzex took a moment to look him over. You're awfully accepting of this without questioning it. It's a whole new life you'll have to get used to. I do not mean to be rude, but your sister has said you're a bit of a recluse. Naruto almost doubled over again from the revelation. So much for having faith in him, he thought with a mild sweat drop as a mental image of Seraphala's cheeky grin came into mind. Well, it's been a while since I saw Sona and I'd like to get closer to her again. Rias is also a friend of mine since she spent so much time with Sona. In general, I don't see many negatives with going. After my visit to Kyoto, my desire to see the world has come back. I have to admit it gets a bit boring just lazing around in the Citri Manor all day. With an understanding nod of his head, Surzex took a breath and got a bit more serious. Well, now you know what I hope you'll do after hearing what I have to say. I'm listening, Naruto responded curiously. Surzex nodded his head and sat up. What I'm going to say is not concrete. I want you to know that, and I'm going out of my way to say it so you have an idea of what you're dealing with. I have a feeling you'll look more into the Kuroka case regardless of what I come forth with. Naruto hummed for a bit before he shrugged. I probably will if she shows herself again. It troubles me a bit. She reminds me of someone I once knew, and for you to be able to perhaps solve this mystery, I'd like to lend you a hand. You know the story of how she supposedly went crazy, right? Of course. With a slow breath and closed eyes, Sirzex collected his thoughts on the matter and opened his eyes again. From what I can tell you, her former king was not a good person. We've been heavily suspicious of his activities in regards to what he did with the Bale clan and the old Satan faction. So you're telling me this could be self-defense in her case? Naruto asked with a surprised look. He knew that the words going around about the old Satan faction and the Bale weren't exactly always the prettiest. He nodded, and given what your new peerage member says, it only fuels my suspicions. Senjutsu users are few and far in between. Given that he was able to pick up these signals, I'm tempted to say that she may have been triggered to do it. Naruto looked on whilst trying to conceal his growing feelings. This case reminded him more and more of Itachi. And if it was then he knew what he would do, what if it was self-defense, and that her former king had it coming? Sirzex looked on with a blank expression. We cannot do anything without proper channels getting involved. We'd have to have her undergo a thorough interrogation, and then decide. But what if she was innocent? Naruto tried again. With a raised brow, Sirzex cupped his chin. You're quite interested in this. I have to admit I'm surprised you just met her. Naruto frowned a bit and lowered his head. If she's really like the way I think she is, then she's a good person. And I hate seeing good people take the fall for the actions of bad people. Sirzex smiled a bit at the proclamation. I understand. After all, it's when good people do nothing that the bad guys win. You're a good person, I just hope that you know what you're getting into. With a determined look, Naruto raised his head. I don't care what I'm getting into, but if I can help her then it'll be worth it. Selfless as stated, he's indeed an interesting individual. I can see why Sarah Fall thinks so highly of him, and not just because it's her brother. Having him around Rias will definitely be beneficial, Sirzex thought and kept up the smile. Hold your horses for just a bit, we don't know if it's the truth yet. Right, how can we go about this? Sirzex chuckled and stood up. I cannot act on much on my end yet, but I think the case will be in good hands. Naruto scratched the back of his head. I'm not sure I follow. As he walked over to his desk in the room, Sirzex picked up a picture of a small silver-haired girl, which he handed Naruto, who looked at it with confusion. I want you to find the truth. I will need that, along with Kuroka's consent to an interrogation. And if we're right, then she can be free again? Sirzex frowned. Not quite. Naruto raised a brow and stood up. Why not? The frown intensified as the older devil let Naruto stare the picture over. That is her sister. Her name was Chiron. She now goes by the name of Kaneko and is a part of Rias' peerage. Her execution was called for when Kuroka did what she did, but I protected her and put her in the care of my sister. Naruto's lips fell down into a frown as he stared at the picture with a sorrow-filled expression. I see. The problem with the matter is there'd be retaliation should we redeem her name off the bat. Just like the other Nekishu, there are likely powerful people that'd rather see her dead than alive. And not only would she be in danger, both you and anyone affiliated with you or her could be in potential danger. With a look of realization, Naruto looked up from the picture. You're thinking of Rias and Sona, aren't you? Sirzex nodded. Yes, those two could be caught in the potential crossfire. Now that was something he didn't want. But at the same time he didn't want to sit around and do nothing if his suspicions turned out to be true, and he could help. So what can we do? The great devil put his arms behind his back and thought for a second. If we can cover up the possible redemption of her name with an event that'll displease those people more, it'll work in our favor. Naruto looked surprised. So we cover it up with something they'll hate more, and then they'll forget about her. It's only natural. If they have to focus their anger on something that is bigger than her, they won't have time or the need. That'll be our only play if we can prove her innocence. Let's just focus on figuring out whether or not we're making theories for nothing first. Yeah, that made sense. It made him feel a bit silly. They had just thought of almost an entire strategy to help a criminal that maybe wasn't as innocent as they thought. Time would have to tell. Alright, I'll do it. And I'll tell you as soon as I know something. Naruto proclaimed with a thumb pressed against his chest. Sirzex just looked a bit amused. It wasn't often he met someone as headstrong as him, though Rias was up there. He gave a quick smile and extended his hand. I look forward to it. Now, what will you do? Naruto quickly accepted the hand for a quick handshake. I'll go to Koa as intended, though finding a place to stay will be hard. I'm not exactly a pro at real estate. I may be able to help you out there. Naruto's brow twitched slightly with a mix of annoyance and amusement as he stared at the building in front of him, but was broken out of his stupor when he heard a whistle behind him. You know, when that great devil guy you met said he'd help you out, this wasn't what I imagined. The dark-haired boy turned around to watch Kurama waltzing up beside him with his Youkai features now hidden since they were in public. His hand was combing through his hair as he stared at the building in front of them. And he couldn't blame him for the reaction, not in the slightest. After all, who would have guessed that a mere favor would involve a 2-story tall mansion made out of black brickwork? And that was just the exterior, with no reaction yet to the interior. I find myself agreeing. I had just thought he meant he'd get us some kind of apartment with enough space, but this I don't even know what to say. I guess it pays handsomely to be Lucifer. Naruto chuckled. Well, he could probably have bought this himself, but turning down help from Sirzex seemed like a bad idea, especially since being on good terms with him and his sister on top of that would give him a lot of options in the future. Kurama scratched the back of his neck. Well, I suppose that means we can fit a whole peerage in here. Not that we have anyone else yet. Naruto felt as if that was a blow to his pride, and coughed into his hand as something came to mind. Well, we do have one other member, but he is still in the underworld. He became part of my peerage a while ago, but considering I wasn't really doing anything, I just let him do his thing for the time being. Now, this intrigued Kurama. So who's the lucky or unlucky fella, depending on how you look at it? With a small huff, Naruto crossed his arms over his chest. His name is Veldora. He is one of the sons of Tanin. Tanin? As in one of the Dragon Kings? Naruto shrugged. Former Dragon King actually. Heard something about his pride getting hurt when Great Red ignored him, but yeah him. Kurama gave a slow nod of his head as he let that sink in. Even in Kyoto, he had heard of Tanin. Even when the information they had was little, he was still aware enough to respect his strength. It did make him wonder how powerful his son would be. So how strong is this Veldora? He finally asked, to satisfy his curiosity. The young devil hummed as he let his eyes wander over the building again. Pretty damn strong. Probably around your level, maybe stronger now if I think about it. Though it's hard to say, it's been a couple of years and Veldora is special. Kurama raised a brow. Special how? Naruto chuckled as he went over the memory in his head. He likes to fight. Let's just leave it at that. He has probably fought countless strong people, and he has all 8 of my pawn pieces. With his curiosity once again piquing, Kurama let a smirk form on his face. Sounds like he'd be an interesting opponent. You want to fight him? Naruto asked with a small smile. Kurama cracked his neck and punched a fist to his palm. I don't see why not. We only have the fun we make ourselves. And it won't hurt having a rival beside you. Naruto's eyes widened slightly in surprise. I'm a rival to you? The fox snickered with a mischievous gaze. Don't let it get to your head. But you're probably the strongest of the two of us. If Yasaka said so, even if it was part of a joke, I'll respect it, but I'll win against you one of these days. Part of Naruto started to question his decision-making. The 2 people he had gotten into his peerage were apparently both heavily addicted to fighting. He just hoped Kurama wasn't as serious as Lee had been when it came to stuff like rivals. He'd rather not deal with that. While he did like to fight himself, and he fought enjoyment and satisfaction from winning, he'd rather not constantly have to fight both Kurama, but also Veldora. He started laughing a bit to himself. He did have quite the peerage so far. Normally devils would reincarnate humans with tools like sacred gears to expand their peerage, but also the devil population. But he had gone ahead and taken in a fox Youkai from Kyoto, but also a dragon who was the son of a former Dragon King. If he kept that up, it'd only be a matter of time before his entire group was filled with remarkable people from all kinds of species. The future would indeed be full of fun and entertainment, just the way he liked it. Anyhow, are we gonna stand here and worship the craftsmanship of this or something, or are we gonna take a peek inside? Kurama asked as his impatience started to show. Naruto sighed and walked forward and unlocked the front of the house. His name is Surzex, you should probably remember that. I'm better with faces than with names, the fox spoke non-caringly. Deciding to ignore Kurama's attitude this time, Naruto opened the front door to their new home. It took them a while to explore the entire thing, but there was every necessity that they need. Surzex really hadn't been cheap with this, and it made him almost scared of what kind of palace his sister might be living in. Though part of him knew it likely wasn't a palace she was living in. The word of why Rias Gremry lived in the human world wouldn't go well with the idea of her living in a castle like some sort of queen, or well, king. The residence they had been given had around 8 bedrooms, and 4 bathrooms. A joined kitchen and dining room, along with a huge living room, not to mention the furniture, and everything else. He'd always been intrigued by the technology of this world, so when he discovered several stations to play various games in the living room, he already knew he'd spend a lot of time playing those games. The master bedroom was a dream in itself. A king-size bed in the middle, with a private bathroom, and a glass sliding door leading to the garden, along with enough space to make anyone jealous was only part of the reason that he had pulled the king of the peerage card to get it, much to Kurama's annoyance. No, the biggest reason he had taken this room for himself was the onsen in the backyard, and the door in the room led right out to it. He had always been too busy to try and kick Sasuke's ass and bring him back to properly enjoy these in Konoha, so he jumped at the chance to thoroughly abuse his chance this time around. Oh, and then there was his second favorite thing. A giant backyard. Some might ask why that was his second favorite thing when comparing it to everything else the mansion provided. The answer was simple though. It provided enough space to both put up a barrier, but also spacious enough to contain the undoubtedly large amounts of spars and fights that occur here. Naruto gave a small sigh as he walked into the backyard and looked up at the night sky, intertwining his fingers under the back of his head as he closed his eyes. It had taken a while to get settled in the new place, and it was already nighttime. And while he was enjoying this new house already, he was a bit afraid of what was to come. He had gotten this place as a helping hand, so he started to fear what kind of horror it would be to look out for Rias. It wasn't like he didn't know the girl. His younger sister was friends with her, so they were acquainted, but that was years ago. Perhaps it was her peerage. Was she as lucky as he was in regards to gathering interesting individuals? Perhaps that was it. He let out another sigh as he lowered his hands and opened his eyes, slowly turning around to stare at the corner of his house. How long are you gonna stand there and watch me? It's getting a bit creepy after you sought me out on the train. A dark figure waltzed around the corner as he chuckled, wearing a traditional robe with his hands hidden in the sleeves. You've gotten quite perceptive of when people are watching you. I have to admit I'm impressed. Azazel, right? He asked, though he already knew the answer. The man gave a small grin. So you remembered my name, I'm flattered. Naruto rolled his eyes with a look of amusement. Hard to forget when the leader of the Grigori decides to have a casual chat with you out of nowhere. So you're interested in why? Azazel stated more than asked. With a nod of his head, Naruto crossed his arms over his chest. That'd be an understatement. Azazel smirked a bit as he took a seat on a bench that was placed along the mansion's wall. It's quite simple actually. You, my friend, are weird, Naruto groaned. It wasn't like he'd disagree by any means, but it was still annoying to hear it from others, so? The older male sat back and relaxed. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Trust me, you should see some of the people I'm around daily. Will this conversation get anywhere? Not that I don't enjoy the visit, but I have to admit I'm not exactly sure that a fallen angel visiting me is a good thing. Azazel let out a laugh as he hit his knee. So you're worried I'm here to cause trouble? Well, you're in luck because I'm only here to chat with you. You're an interesting fellow, that's why I wanted to get to know you. What's so interesting about me? Naruto asked, feeling a bit more relaxed. The fallen angel shrugged. What's not interesting? Half Agars, half Citri. Despite being the oldest of the younger siblings, you're not the heir to your house. You use time magic, exceptionally at that. Naruto's eyes widened a bit at the obvious compliment, but also a bit surprised by the amount of information Azazel had on him. You're not making me worry any less by stating my entire resume to my face like that though, Naruto replied with a small sweat drop. Azazel waved his hands as I said, I'm just here to have a friendly chat with you. Plus it would be fun to have another companion to hang around with now that you're taking residence in Ko. My fishing trips do get lonely on my lonesome. Part of him was starting to think he just found the second coming of Jiraiya. This guy was equally weird in some aspects, and was scheming to take him along on some trips. He wouldn't even be surprised if this guy turned out to be a pervert. Why'd you invite a random person you basically just met out for a fishing trip? Sounds a bit suspicious if you ask me, Naruto questioned, getting a sense of déjà vu from when Jiraiya had back in the day asked him to go on research detours during their training trips. The leader of the Grigori gave him a calculative look. Aren't we all supposed to be good fellow citizens? I suppose, Naruto muttered, but not one less bit confused. Before he'd answer the question he'd at least have to ask his sister for advice on this. Azazel didn't seem to want any trouble, but this guy wasn't to be underestimated by any means. He was confident in his ability to fight, but he did doubt that if the fallen angel wanted to clash, he'd win that easily if even win that battle at all. The battle experience he had in comparison was off the charts, and he had no idea about what he was capable of. Azazel, on the other hand, had clearly shown that he knew what moves he had in his arsenal, so the odds were stacked against him from the start. So, shall I take that as a yes? Azazel smirked as he inspected the thoughtful gaze on the young devil's face. Naruto blinked as he returned from his train of thought. Maybe. I can't answer at the moment. I have some business to take care of, but I have a feeling you'll drop by again soon regardless of what I say. Guilty as charged. Very well then, I'll leave to whatever you gotta do. Though I hope you'll consider it, it's no fun going fishing alone. Azazel chuckled as she spread out his black wings and disappeared out into the night. Even just at that display, Naruto felt inferior. The number of wings the guy had was a clear indicator he was powerful, but after seeing that, part of him wanted to fight him just a bit more than he had previously. Perhaps Kurama and Veldora weren't the only ones that were a bit battle-hungry after all. Chapter 5, Storm Dragon. Today was a day when he really started to question his existence in this world. He had been put on this job as a favor for Surzex, but the moment he had entered the school grounds he had realized something that Surzex had failed to mention to him beforehand. Apparently, this place used to be an all-girls school, which meant that as far as he could see, there were only girls. He had only seen one guy so far, and that had been a teacher. He sighed as he ran a hand through his hair. Today he had let Kurama stay at the mansion because he figured this was a job for himself. Boy, he regretted that now. Not once in his life did he think he'd feel sorry for Sasuke being popular, but it was different now, because as much as his appearance was ironic when compared to his old looks, so was his popularity. It creeped him out. No matter where he went, he felt as if someone had put an infinite spotlight on him, especially once they looked at him and whispered. Hell, some of the looks he received were starting to freak him out. What is this? The hometown of the Uchiha Fangirl Association. He thought out loud with a shudder. Deciding there was no point in being outside and the center of attention, he carefully slipped inside the school building and made his way through the place. Not that it helped, on the contrary, it seemed like people were just getting closer. Sighing for the 1000th time that day, he rushed toward the place he had been told the student council resided. He had to admit he was proud of his younger sister. As one of the people that knew of her dream for the future, she was already making progress by becoming the head of the school. Grateful that the room had a sign on the door, he quickly slipped inside the doorway and closed the door behind him, sliding down to the floor as he made a small apology for the number of times he had cursed Sasuke for his popularity with the girls. They seemed just as crazy here. He opened his eyes and gazed around, and groaned at the sight of the empty room. They must be attending class right now, huh? Thanks Satan it isn't me. He chuckled gleefully. With a small jump, he got on top of one of the tables and sat down, raising a brow at the stack of documents at his side. He latched onto them and started to look through them, and noticed most of them were budget paperwork. Damn, Sona is just like old man Sandame. Cursed by paperwork, he thought with a loud laugh, once again thanking deities that it wasn't his problem to deal with stuff like that. It did make him wonder if chasing the Hokage title had been a good idea, considering how much he hated papers and tests in general. What the hell do you think you're doing on the president of the student council's desk, you bastard? State your name and give me your student ID card. Naruto raised a brow as he heard a voice call out to him. With a hum he stared down at a blonde boy that was slightly shorter than he was. His eyes were infuriated as he pointed an accusing finger at him. Resting his head against his fist, Naruto hummed louder with a non-caring look in his eyes. Who the hell are you supposed to be? The boy faltered and took a step back with a tick mark throbbing on his forehead. The name is Genshiro Saji, and as a member of the student council I demand that you get your ass off that desk and start answering my questions or you'll be in trouble. Naruto laughed loudly at that. The boy hadn't seemed to catch on just yet, but he had. Just at a glance he already knew this Saji person was a reincarnated devil. The question just remained whether or not he was part of Ria's peerage, or Sona's. He guessed the latter since he was a member of this council. With an amused look, he slid down from the table and walked over, his red eyes staring down at the boy, and slammed his fist against the wall and stared down at him. And what do you plan to do with that information, devil boy? Saji's eyes widened as he backed off, his back hitting against the wall as he stared up into the red eyes that seemed more terrifying now than before. How do you know? What are you? The boy asked with a mild stutter as sweat started to form on his forehead. Naruto could barely contain the laughter that was threatening to explode at any moment. He had to give credit to Kurama at some point. Intimidating people was really fun. I'd appreciate it if you didn't scare my pawn to death, big brother. With a small sigh, Naruto got away from the scared boy and turned his gaze toward the door where he came eye to eye with his younger sister. Her violet eyes stared into his own with a look of disapproval, but her lips curved upward into a smile. As Saji found his ability to breathe again, his brow twitched. Big brother? He mumbled and deflated to the floor like a balloon. Why do you have to ruin my fun, Sona? I was just having a bit of fun with him. Naruto chuckled and jogged over to meet the girl halfway just to engulf her in a hug. Sona smiled a bit, ignoring the urge to tell him that she'd prefer he didn't do stuff like this on the school grounds, and settled for returning his quick embrace. If word got out that a member of the student council pissed himself in fear, everyone would lose respect for us. Naruto's sweat dropped and stepped with a sheepish grin. Yeah, I guess so. Sorry about that, Saji, right? The boy who had started to recover from the shock got back to his feet and waved his hand around. All good, I'm completely fine. Sure, Naruto trailed off. So, where's the rest of your group hiding? Sona adjusted her glasses. Attending classes. I just went to see what the hell was taking Saji so long. All I did was send him to get some papers. Naruto gave an understanding nod as he reached over and clapped the blonde boy on his shoulder. Very well, sorry for interrupting your work. I'm Naruto Citri, by the way. Saji rubbed his forehead and stared at him with a puzzled look. The recluse? As if an arrow had pierced his chest, Naruto grabbed the front of his jacket and looked at Sona with a hurt look. That's what you tell people about me? She just gave him a deadpan expression in return. Is it wrong? I guess not. Well, technically it is wrong now, but whatever. With a calculative look, Sona pushed her glasses further up on the bridge of her nose. Not that I don't appreciate your visit, even if it's unannounced. I have to ask what you're doing here. I'd imagine you'd have better things to do. Like getting a peerage. With a hurtful expression, Naruto turned back to her. For your information, I have already started on that. And as for why I'm here, I'm a new club advisor. Shocking, right? Sona's eyes visibly darkened. I refuse. I do not need you watching over my shoulder. He waved his hand. Don't worry, I figured you wouldn't want me sticking my nose in your business. I'm the club advisor for the Occult Research Club, I think it was called. She raised a brow at him. Ria's club? I wonder why. As you so rudely pointed out earlier, I'm a recluse. People thought it'd be a good idea for me to get out more and well, I knew you wouldn't want me here. He smiled. Sona frowned and crossed her arms under her chest. It's not that I don't want you here, but I'd prefer doing this on my own. Being the leader of a peerage and head of a student council is training for the future. I know, and that is why I'm hired to help out Rias. Plus, there are some more reasons. Like, we both know she has a certain bishop she has trouble with. With a look of realization, Sona smirked. I see, our sister and Surzek-sama must have placed you here to partially help with Gasper as well as force you to socialize. Yup, that's pretty much it. It was only half the truth, but he figured that telling them that they were in potential danger wouldn't help anyone at this time. Sona tilted her head. So why did you come here? The ORC building is in the old school building. If you go out through the back you can't miss it. Naruto sat down on a nearby chair and crossed his legs at his ankles. Well, I figured that they'd be in class, and I couldn't help but want to pay my adorable little sister a visit first. Saji watched the interactions with a nervous look on his face. He had never seen anyone speak like that with Sona before. He knew that if he ever tried something like that, then his sadistic king would totally whoop his ass. Sona's cheeks heated up a bit out of embarrassment, and coughed into her hand. Well, I happen to know that they won't be meeting until at least the evening or after classes are over. You're here way too early, big brother. Yeah, I figured that'd be the case. I wasn't planning on staying until then. I need to make a quick detour to the underworld, then I'll return during the night. I assume she is still out getting contracts and the like? She nodded her head, but looked confused after. Didn't you just come from the underworld? Technically yeah, we've been here for a few days to get settled in. She raised a brow. We? Naruto smirked. As I said, I've started on my peerage. That's also why I'm going back to the underworld for a quick detour. I'm going to fetch a member. With another nod of understanding, she looked up at the clock to see how long she had left before her next class started. So how many members are up to now? He shrugged with a small smile. Only 2 so far, but they're unique. Well, we all start somewhere. You'll have to excuse me for now, I need to go to my next class. Saji, you should get your ass moving too unless you want to be late. I'll not tolerate the council getting a reputation of being late. Naruto's sweat dropped at how her tone shifted in an instant, and just waved as she walked through the door. I'll see you soon. Before she could go any further, Sona stuck her head inside the doorway again. If you got time after speaking with Rias, you should come by. It's been a while since we talked. You should bring your peerage. Sure thing, it's been a while since I talked with Tsubaki and the others. Naruto smiled. Sona gave a small smile in return. I'll make preparations then. She finished and shot Saji a dark look before she left. Saji sighed with a crestfallen look as he gazed down at the sitting devil. How do you deal with her, HM? Naruto hummed thoughtfully. The younger boy scratched the back of his head. You know, she is so demanding at times. She is? Well, I'm her brother, so I guess it's a bit different for me. Just don't get on her bad side, that place is scary. Naruto chuckled nervously. Saji, who had thought he had experienced that, almost choked on his own spit out of surprise, and just nodded his head. I guess I'll leave too. It was a pleasure meeting you. Naruto grinned and waved his hand at him. Likewise, don't worry, I won't scare you the next time we meet. Well, maybe, no promises. The last thing Naruto managed to hear was a stuttered mumble of defeat about how every Citri was sadistic. They couldn't be that bad, could they? What exactly are we doing back here so soon? A certain fox grumbled as he walked behind the king of the peerage. Naruto looked over his shoulder as they made their way to the outskirts of the Gremry territory, and toward the border that'd be the place the dragon apples grew, also known as Tannen's territory. With a small chuckle he dug his hands inside his pockets. He hadn't exactly expected to be back here so soon, but with the new mansion in place, he saw no reason to not gather the other member of their peerage. Well, we're here to get Veldora. I hadn't expected to be placed in Ko and get a mansion out of it, but I guess there is no real reason to stay apart anymore. Plus, Veldora is unique. He loves manga, so being in a place where I don't have to supply him anymore is beneficial. Naruto's sweat dropped. Kurama snorted with laughter. Let me guess, the dragon loves to read that stuff called Drag Sobol. Taking a moment to think, Naruto nodded his head. Yeah, pretty much. Almost slipping over his own feet, Kurama regained his footing with a deadpan expression. For real? For real, Naruto repeated. Kurama's face morphed into a blank expression. That's way too ironic. I guess it is. Just bear with him, he's well, what I used to be. The Youkai gave a small frown as he stepped up beside Naruto, as they walked into rows of trees with very special-looking apples growing on them. What do you mean? Naruto chuckled a bit as he reminisced about the past. Veldora is how to put it like I was when I was a kid. He lacked a lot of social skills when I first met him. Hell, the only way he thought he could entertain himself was by fighting. Let me guess, the dragon picked a fight with you the first time you met, Kurama stated with a small smirk. He nodded at that, pretty much. You can probably call him a bit of a recluse too. I was the first friend he ever had. The other dragons were growing a bit tired of it, so Tannen and my older sister pushed us together to meet. You're not going to tell me that you shifted his lust for fighting onto manga instead, are you? This time it was Naruto's turn to almost fall over his own feet. And maybe I thought it'd help him. By giving him something else to focus on, I figured he'd have an easier time. Kurama nodded in understanding. So how did it develop to him being part of your peerage? I did a bit of reading when I was enjoying the hot springs at the house. Supposedly it's quite a big deal if someone takes up all 8 pawn pieces. Veldora is strong, really strong. Hell, he was stronger than me the first few times we fought. But then again it was Veldora that made me strive to be as powerful as I am now. I guess I'll always be a sore loser, so we made a deal about having a fight whenever we met. Naruto chuckled sheepishly. With a groan, Kurama's brow twitched slightly. I swear if he starts throwing hands the moment we run into him, I'm not responsible for what happens. Oh? You think you can take on Veldora? Naruto teased with a smirk, which just gave him a punch to the shoulder in return. Kurama snorted. Heh, as if some overgrown lizard could take me on. Naruto turned back to watch the surroundings after that. He truly didn't know who'd win in that fight. He could sense Kurama was strong, but he knew Veldora was no joke. Both Kurama and Veldora were fighting maniacs whether they admitted it or not. Plus, it had been a while since Naruto had met his childhood friend. There was no telling how strong he could have gotten in the past few years. The thought excited him. It had been a while since he had had a good brawl. You never really answered how it came to be that he joined the peerage. Naruto blinked and face-palmed. Right, he had forgotten about that. Well, as I said, I was practically his first friend. We spent a lot of time together fighting, and when I figured out what I wanted to do, he practically asked me to take him in. But why? With a smile, Naruto looked up at the sky. He wants to fight strong opponents just like us. I also think he has something he wants to prove, and I think fighting for a cause he believes in will help with that. A small smile lifted Kurama's face. The lizard probably also just wanted to help his friend. It's only natural, you gave him something he hadn't before. It's only natural he'd support you. Oh, is that why you joined me? Kurama's forehead grew a tick mark. Don't kid yourself, brat. You're 1,000 years too young to think I'd go soft like that. Naruto smiled cheekily. Oh my, and here I thought you had already gone soft on me, Kurama-kun. Is it that hard to be honest with yourself? You hurt my feelings. Kurama's face twitched as he flashed his fangs in a bloodthirsty manner. Trust me, that's not the only thing that'll hurt once I'm through with you. He would have responded to the claim, but when he felt the surge of power steadily approaching, he knew exactly what was going to happen. Seemed like a certain someone had finally felt his presence, and it was about time. He had almost started to feel hurt. Veldora never took that long to notice him. With a smirk, Naruto took a step back as a yellow blur flashed down from above and into the ground. The earth shook as Kurama jumped back with a puzzled look. What in hell was that supposed to be? Naruto decided not to answer for now because his entire face paled as the cloud of dirt and debriefing revealed a man with blonde hair, about 2 meters tall, wearing just a brown cloak with red lining, matching brown pants, and white boots, though it wasn't the appearance that was scaring him. No, it was the giant yellow aura that seemed to burn around him as his bangs shadowed his eyes. Naruto. He gulped a bit. He didn't recall having pissed Veldora off in the past, but it sure seemed like the case. The Veldora? He asked with a small nervous chuckle. Kurama gazed between them and quickly figured this had nothing to do with him. A mischievous foxy grin settled on his face as he relaxed, and decided to see how this would play out. Before either of them could react, the aura vanished as Veldora appeared right in Naruto's face. But the scared look on the devil's face turned into amusement when he saw the cover of a certain manga right before his eyes. He was about to answer, but Veldora pulled the book back as he stuck his head forward in frantic yellow eyes as he waved his arms around in the air. Where the hell have you been? Do you know how long I waited, huh? I've been waiting for the next volume for forever. Naruto rubbed his ear as the dragon shouted out the last part. What do you mean waited in ages? I supplied you like with a decade's worth of manga the last time I was here. Veldora pulled at his hair and waved the manga around in the air. Exactly. I finished all of that within the month, and could do nothing but take out my frustration on my surroundings. Kurama's entire face fell down into a deadpan expression before he smacked his forehead. You mean to tell me you were about to beat the brat up because you read a decade's worth of fictional books in a month? The blonde raised a brow with a hum as he turned his head in the fox's direction. Who are you supposed to be? Deciding now would be a fine time to intervene, Naruto stepped in between the two and coughed into his hand. Veldora, this is the queen of my peerage, Kurama. With his eyes widening in surprise, a wide smirk split Veldora's face. Oh, so that's it, you should have said so sooner. Very well then, I'm the storm dragon, Veldora. All who defy me will be slaughtered. He shouted and erupted with laughter. This guy is even more obnoxious than those bushy-browed freaks. Kurama thought with a look of pure amusement. Naruto on the other hand took the book out of Veldora's hand and promptly smacked it into the back of his head. I know that you like manga, but could you not shout everything you read from it like it's normal? Veldora rubbed the back of his head as he stared at his friend with a heartbroken look. We meet after so long and you're this cold. It's like I'm the only one that cares about our friendship. You didn't even bring me any new manga. The dark-haired devil rolled his eyes and clapped him on the back, and for a very good reason. It's about time. The blonde's eyes widened with a knowing look. Oh? You're planning to make your move soon, I see. So who is the first that'll face us? I hope they're strong. What are you talking about? Kurama asked with a raised brow. Veldora gave a smug look. Oh, you mean to tell me you're the queen of the peerage, and you don't even know? Kurama's face morphed into a sadistic grin. Could you not be so damn obnoxious and loud? I swear you're even worse than Naruto. What do I have to do with this? Naruto thought with a hurt look, before he stepped in between them. Enough of that. What he means is what I told you earlier. I plan on becoming the strongest to prove my idea, and for that we'll be entering the rating games. Veldora nodded and smacked his fist into his palm. I can barely wait. You thought of this plan so long ago. I've been itching to beat them all. Definitely, a fight freak like the brat said, Kurama thought to himself. I see. When will we enter? Do we know our first opponent? Naruto shook his head. No, we aren't quite there yet. We're getting close. We're 3 now, and I think with a few more members we'll be well equipped to start fighting. That's too bad. I'd have loved to beat some of those smug-faced looking bastards. Kurama almost pouted. Veldora nodded in agreement. Yeah, complete disappointment. Naruto chuckled. It's not that easy. We'll first have to prove our worth by gathering a strong peerage. We won't be recognized as worthy participants before we make a name for ourselves. My plan is to fight some unofficial matches, gain some status, and then start challenging people for an official match. Kurama gave him a curious look. You're definitely smarter than you used to be. Who is our first target then? With a now intrigued look, Veldora looked intensely at Naruto. Well, I do have someone in mind. Her name is Sigvara Agars. We have a bit of a rivalry. What is it with you and rivals, do you never learn? Kurama asked. Ignoring the disrespectful question, Naruto looked at his 2 peerage members. Long story short is that the devil heirs are gonna have a tournament soon. I'm not an heir because I'm half Citri and half Agars. Since I'm part Agars, I have their magic. Sigvera and I have always joked about finding out who is best at using it. Is she the only one? Veldora asked curiously. Naruto shook his head with a serious look in his eyes. No, there is someone else. If I have to be honest, he's probably my biggest rival of them all. I've sparred with him before, but I've never beaten him, though I haven't lost either. He knows how to use his Tuki even better than anyone I've ever met, so we often had to agree on a tie. Kurama started to look serious now as well. He had already sensed that Naruto's level of strength was no joke. Hell, he couldn't sense anyone in the town of Ko that was remotely close to his level. Who is it? With his arms crossed over his chest, Naruto stared at the ground. His name is Serorg Bale. He didn't inherit his family's ability and instead, he ended up resorting to honing his body. He's just like someone Kurama and I knew. Getting the hint, a mental image of Rock Lee appeared in Kurama's head. So that's how it is. So it's someone with a bad luck of the draw and innate abilities. But he is a fighting machine beyond belief. Tuki? What's that supposed to mean? Veldora asked with a confused tone. Naruto thought for a second. Well, think of it like this. In essence, it's the external manipulation of one's life force, wrapped around them like an aura. It gives many things, strong offense, defense, and speed. On top of that, from what I can gather, it has a passive effect that overpowers magic weaker than it. After his explanation, he looked over to Kurama to see if he had explained it correctly. Being quite a skilled senjutsu user, Kurama gave a brief nod of his head and turned to Veldora. That's a rough part of it, but yes, he's essentially like a tank in all of those mangas. If Tuki is all he can do, then it's no surprise you haven't won yet. With a frown, Veldora looked at Naruto. So your magic has until now been too weak to reach him? Partially. As you both know, I use time magic. I've tried a few things, like capturing him with chronostasis several times, but his abilities with Tuki are so strong that he ends up breaking through it. It's been years since then though, and I'm much stronger now. Veldora gave a knowing smirk. So you're gonna win. Mimicking the smirk on his friend's face, Naruto cracked his knuckles. Oh yeah, I'm gonna win. Serorg and I fight for similar beliefs, but there's no way in hell I'm gonna lose. Good, I don't want to serve a loser. So I guess that means we have our targets. What's the next move then? Kurama chipped in. For now we'll go back to Ko. We still need to see if we can find a member or two more just in case. What do you say, Veldora? You gonna come with us? The dragon grinned and wrapped an arm around his neck. Definitely. So many strong fights are coming up, and I'll finally be able to get my hands on unlimited manga. It's a win-win situation. He spoke the last part seriously with a clenched fist. Kurama snorted. That's good and all, but you might need a different set of clothes. Not sure the cops will appreciate some monster tall guy running around like he's a male stripper with a cosplay cloak. Veldora raised a brow. What's a stripper? Naruto's sweat dropped. Oh boy. Chapter 6. Black and White. The duo now turned trio returned later that day to Ko. It was now nighttime in the town, meaning that the school in which the supposed headquarters of Rias Gremory looked like something out of a horror movie. A bit ironic considering they were devils, and they were often associated with evil and chaos, but whatever. Naruto had been here earlier that day to meet his sister, but this time was the first visit from both Kurama, but also Veldora. The latter of the two sniffed the air as he walked with his hands tucked inside his pockets. He was now wearing a white button-up shirt and brown pants so that he wouldn't stick out as much as he would in his usual clothes, though he had made loud claims that he'd return to wearing them whenever he'd fight, since he wouldn't feel comfortable wearing this type of attire should he battle. Which was fair, they were willing to accept that. Veldora gave a grim look as his yellow eyes glanced over the deserted school grounds. This place smells depressed. Any reason for that? The Youkai had to give a nod of agreement. No kidding. The atmosphere here screams broken dreams and oddly enough pervertedness. Veldora nodded his head, agreeing to be confused about the situation. So what are we really doing? Reading manga while walking is hard. Naruto raised a brow. You can read manga when we get back. It won't take that long, he started, questioning why the manga was relevant in this situation but decided to ignore it. And we're here to meet the reason we got that mansion in the first place. The storm dragon pouted. Fine, but you better believe that I'll catch up on it when we get back, even if it means skipping sleep. Why did that sound so oddly familiar? Naruto thought to himself with a sweat drop. Kurama snickered. So we meet more people? Look at us being social and all that crap. Naruto nodded. Yeah, we're about to meet Surzek's little sister. She's apparently having a school club as a masquerade for her peerage in this haunted house. I mean old school building. Veldora looked up at the large building with his hand raised to shield his eyes from the moonlight. That's a school building? I could have sworn it looked like the cover image of one of those horror manga you lent me. The Youkai sighed. Seems like he is more otaku than dragon. He mentally snickered as the trio walked inside the building. Well, it's in the middle of the night, and it's the old school building. So yeah, it probably looks haunted. Naruto mused out loud as they walked through the corridors, aiming toward the place they'd been told Rias usually were during the night. With a slow nod of his head, Veldora let his hand down. So what are these people like? Naruto cupped his chin and thought, well, it may be better to meet them first to get an idea. Long story short, I've only met Rias and her queen, so I can't really speak for the rest of her peerage. The former bijou crossed his arms over his chest. What's the princess like then? Princess? Naruto asked with mild amusement. Kurama snorted. She's the Devil King's little sister. I thought it'd be fitting. Naruto chuckled. Well, as long as you don't call her that to her face. She's well alright, I think. We're on friendly terms, though it's been a bit since I saw her. Isn't she a good friend of your sister? You talked about them coming back to the underworld during the summer. Kurama asked curiously. He nodded in response. Yeah, that's the few times I've met her. Though since Rias started getting her peerage members, they haven't come over as much, so I've only had the pleasure of meeting one of them. Naruto finished as he opened a door, which met the description of their targeted area. I guess this is it, Veldora thought as he leaped down into one of the couches that matched what you'd expect from an occult research club. This thing looks like it was brought out of Dracula. Dracula? Kurama asked with a confused look. Veldora nodded. I've read other things than manga, but nothing compares in entertainment. I always get lost in ordinary novels, not enough pictures. He grumbled. Kurama was unable to hold back a smirk as he looked around. That's so? Don't worry, I'll give you a picture book for your birthday. Naruto watched the interactions with interest, glad that his two friends were getting along even if Kurama could tone down the teasing a bit. The young devil gave a small sigh as he sat down in a large chair behind a desk, which he figured was Rias. As long as it's a manga I don't mind, though I bet you'll find it difficult to find a good one with your lack of taste. Veldora laughed and put up his feet on the armrest, pulling out one of his prized books to start reading. The king of the peerage was about to scold his pawn for the lack of manners but decided against it, getting serious Kakashi-sensei vibes here. Kurama shook his head whilst mumbling a quiet, whatever, as he grabbed onto a curtain and pulled it open to reveal another part of the clubroom. With a twitching eyebrow, he stepped aside and pointed inside, and shot a beyond confused expression at Naruto. Okay, you say this girl is alright, but why the hell does she have a shower in the middle of her clubroom? Veldora, who was distracted by the commotion, let down his manga and gazed in with a raised brow. Is she some kind of closet pervert? I'd appreciate it if you didn't go through my stuff. Not only that, but you're trespassing on Gremry territory. A feminine voice suddenly called out. Naruto raised a brow at the claim and rested his cheek on his fist, as the doors leading into the clubroom opened again. The first person to enter was a girl with long, beautiful crimson hair and deep blue eyes. Not to speak of her figure, there were surely appreciative things to look at. She had a stern look on her face as she crossed her arms beneath her chest, and 3 additional figures started to stand beside her. Veldora hummed and leaned his head back over the armrest to stare upside down at Naruto. You didn't tell her we were coming in advance? The dark-haired boy shrugged his shoulders. It's not like I have her phone number. My, Rias, is that how we're supposed to greet old friends? Another girl's voice asked with a tone filled with teasing. Naruto kept silent as the red-haired girl looked to her right, and got eye contact with a girl with just as great of a figure. This girl had very long black hair and violet eyes, but the thing he noted was that the smile on her face reminded him a bit of Sai before they got to know him better. Rias turned her gaze back, and her eyes widened in surprise as she now noticed the boy that was sitting in her chair. Pushing aside the urge to tell him to get the hell out of her seat, she mouthed a confused, Naruto? The one and only. I'm surprised, Rias. I never thought you disliked me enough to get hostile with me, and here I thought we were friends. He teased with a mock-hurt look on his face. The girl fought the urge to stutter out and coughed into her hand before collecting herself. Well, excuse me for not recognizing you right away. I never thought I'd see you here of all places. Let alone the human world, to begin with. As the conversation went on, Kurama walked over and kicked at Veldora's feet with a glance that told him to get off his ass if he didn't want to get hurt. Naruto watched the interaction with a sweat drop as he turned back to Rias. But before he could answer, he was interrupted by a monotone voice and what felt like a death stare. Bucho, who is this boy? With a tilt of his head, Naruto lowered his gaze and immediately his eyes widened. The girl he came face to face with was almost an exact carbon copy of the picture Surzex had shown him, the only difference being the clothes and that she looked a bit older. A young petite girl, with white hair and amber eyes. Just like the rest of the arriving group, she wore the Ko Academy's uniform, and he had no doubt about it when the thought crossed his mind. This was Kuroka's sister. The Gremry heiress put a hand on her hip and looked down at her, and back up to him. Well, I think introductions are in order. Don't you think, Naruto? Certainly, he nodded and stood up from Ria's chair. Much to her delight, the two groups lined up on their respective side of the coffee table between the couches Veldora had earlier sprawled out on. Ladies first. Why thank you, she smiled with a small nod of her head and extended her hand to the first person on her right. As you know, this is my queen Akino Himejima. Besides her, we have my knight Yudo Kiba, and last but not least we have my rook Kaneko Tuja. The group bowed in unison, along with a polite, pleased to meet you. Figuring it was his turn, Naruto gave a small smile. Well, since I appear to be the odd one out, my name is Naruto Citri. Don't let his gender fool you. On my right here we have Kurama. He is my queen, despite how ironic that may sound. A large throbbing tick mark appeared on the yokai's forehead but decided to keep his trap shut about it in the midst of introductions despite how much he wanted to punch his supposed king back to the elemental nations. And on my left, we have my pawn consisting of all 8 of my pieces. His name is Veldora. He's a storm dragon, and one of the sons of Tannen. Naruto finished, and they replicated the gesture Rias Peerage had done earlier with a small bow. The blonde-haired boy of Rias Peerage stepped forward with a look toward his king, which Rias returned with a small nod. Kiba cleared his throat and looked up to the boy that seemed around his age. Excuse me, I can't help but ask, but are you a sibling of Sona Citri? None taken, and yeah, that's my little sister. We probably haven't met before since I wasn't exactly a social butterfly, Naruto chuckled grimly. With a small laugh the other boy nodded his head. Well, I'm pleased to make your acquaintance now. I hope we can all get along. So what are you doing here? Sona isn't here during these hours. Kaneko asked with the same tone lacking emotion. Naruto frowned a bit with a small tilt of his head. This girl certainly seemed a lot different than Kuroka. Well, I'm here to meet all of you. I thought that was a given considering how much we made ourselves at home. He chuckled with an apologetic smile. Rias gave a small smile and sat down on the couch behind her, the rest of her peerage following up as she motioned for Naruto's group to take a seat as well, which they did. Regardless of the awkward first interaction, I'm happy to see you, Naruto. It's been a while since we could talk, though I have to share Kaneko's curiosity. Why are you here at these hours? She asked. Naruto nodded. Well, I recently got here from the underworld. I'll be blunt, I'm the new club advisor for this place. Silence filled the room. Really? Really? Akino giggled behind her hand as she shot a look at Rias. Seems like things have gotten interesting. With a soft sigh, Rias shook her head. Can you elaborate a bit? Certainly, Naruto chuckled. Surzex and my sister placed me here. But before you get mad at your brother, I'm not here to be a babysitter at all. Rias, who was just about to throw a fit about Surzex, took a breath. Continue. He nodded. Well, in simple terms, they want me to stop being a recluse. They figured that being around people near my age would be good, and Surzex had an idea that I could possibly help your bishop. How are you able to help Gatsby? Kaneko intervened with a sense of curiosity. Naruto tilted his head. Well, I happen to know that Gasper possesses a sacred gear with time powers. As Rias made the connection, she leaned back into her seat and crossed her legs. Of course. Since you're a time user yourself, they thought you'd be able to help him. A fit of giggles filled the room, which made Rias turn to her queen. What is it, Akino? Nothing, I'm just humored. You like him so much you went ahead and got a mini version all for yourself. The dark-haired girl answered with a small smirk. The ruined princess cheeks turned a bit pink as she raised a brow. Who said I liked him? Akino tilted her head with a teasing smile. Why not? He's both broody and handsome. Chicks dig that. Kurama couldn't contain himself anymore and threw his head back as he bellowed with laughter, and punched Naruto's shoulder. She did not just do you like that. Naruto himself had his head lowered with a small rain cloud forming over his head. Never in a million years did he imagine that he'd be compared to the likes of Sasuke soon after leaving home. The last member of Naruto's peerage sweat dropped and shook his head, not quite understanding the reference of reason. Why is your aura suddenly depressed? Because he was compared to the one person he shouldn't be. Kurama snickered. Deciding to try and ease up the situation, Rias cleared her throat. That aside, I'd like to have a word with Naruto in private. You're not making my suspicions disappear when you go ahead and do that, Rias. Akino chuckled and stood up with the two others, and started moving toward the door. The red-haired girl sighed as Naruto gave a small smile and shot a look at both Kurama and Veldora. You two can go ahead and head home. I'll come back when I'm done here. They gave a small nod as Kurama elbowed him in the side again, before he leaned over to whisper, I need a word when you get back, that Yudo guy. He gives me Uchiha vibes, if you catch my drift. Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. That wasn't something he had expected. Kiba seemed genuinely polite and like a good guy, but then again he wasn't the senjutsu user among the group. Understood. The two kings remained in their places as the last two disappeared from the school grounds. So how have you been? I'm happy to see that you finally went ahead and got some family members of your own. Rias asked as she stood up and walked over to the windows, and looked up toward the moon. Naruto remained quiet for a bit as he joined her. I've been well. I went on a trip to Kyoto recently, that's where I met Kurama. Veldora, I met a while back, we've been friends for a while. Rias' eyes widened at the mention of Kyoto. She wasn't unaware of what had happened with the Youkai after the actions of the sister of Haruka. Kyoto? Wait, you don't mean to tell me? With a small smirk, Naruto leaned up against the wall. I sure do. Kurama is a Youkai. He's a fox to be precise. The red-haired girl remained quiet for a bit as she looked out the window. She idly clenched her fingers around the fabric of her school uniform. I have a question, but you need to promise me this conversation will stay between us. Trying to lighten up the mood a bit, he gave a big cheerful grin. Why so serious? Are you about to give me a love confession or something? Her eyes widened as she turned to him with an outraged expression on her face. I know that Sona calls you a recluse with a lack of situational awareness, but could you just— She paused in the midst of her verbal slaughter, as she noticed the calm expression on his face. Sorry, you looked a bit tense there. I just wanted to help you relax a bit. You don't have to be nervous around me. We're friends, after all. You can say what's on your mind without reservation. You can trust me, he smiled. With her cheeks heating up again out of embarrassment, she lowered her head. I apologize about that. I went a bit overboard. Well, she doesn't exactly call you that. But regardless, I need to know, is Kurama a senjutsu user? So you want to know if he is a time bomb? She gave a silent nod of her head as she frowned. I don't know if you're aware of another Youkai. That turned out to be not so sane. I am, but don't worry. Kurama is a good guy, and I'll be here. I can guarantee nothing like that will happen. He's a master of that stuff, so nothing will happen, Naruto reassured. As much as he wanted to say he had run into Kuroka, and that something with that story was off, he couldn't just yet. There were a lot of things he needed to take into consideration first, and he needed the story from her side too. After that, he should probably have a conversation with Rias and Sona to explain the situation that may unfold. He hadn't told her about Office and the Cows Brigade either just yet. That was an unnecessary thing for the time being. Can you be sure though? Without revealing too much, Kaneko is the sister of the one that killed her old master. So I'm sure you can imagine why I'm uneasy about the situation. Naruto stuck his hands inside his pockets and gave a nod of his head. I promise. Kurama is trustworthy, and even if it turns out to be false, I have Veldora on my side too. Should a situation emerge where your pawn of 8 pieces isn't at your side, can you without a doubt say that you'll be able to stop him? Rias continued. As much as he didn't like the idea of how she was talking about Kurama, he couldn't blame her. After all, she only had the public truth to go by, and in her eyes, Senjutsu was the thing most feared after the incident with Kuroka. Until the truth was properly revealed and his sister and Surzex had given him the green light, he'd have to play along. As I said, yes? I can stop him, don't worry, Rias. After all, I'm the strongest. He smirked a bit at that. Feeling the vibe, Rias raised a brow and imitated the smirk. Is that so? Very well then. I'll trust you on this. But you might be mistaken about who here is the strongest. You can't possibly mean you? He chuckled and crossed his arms over his chest. She raised a brow and took a step back from the window. Don't come here and say you don't see me as a threat in my own club room. That's just mean of you. As much as he wanted to say he didn't, he also didn't want to underestimate her. He hadn't exactly seen her fight. But considering his biggest rival at the time was Serorg, he had not met many that were able to match him. And if it was a peerage fight, he was also confident in both Kurama and Veldora's ability to fight. Kurama was definitely the biggest ace in the hole in regards to area damage, while he knew Veldora was able to beat most people in one-on-one battles. So if they fought, it was quite a simple game plan they had so far. He'd stop them in time. Kurama would use a spell to do area of effect damage, and then Veldora would knock them over like chess pieces. Unless they were pro at using Tuki, which he doubted, with the exception of maybe Kaneko, but considering how the situation with her sister was, he doubted she used her inherited power at all. Then I won't say that. Though considering I'm here to help you, we might have to find a day for a friendly fight. I know I'm here to help Gasper most of all if you of course allow it, and want my help, but if you want me to help on other fronts I wouldn't mind. He smiled politely. Rias gave a small giggle. I'm actually somewhat happy that my brother did something uncalled for once. I've been a bit at a loss for what to do with Gasper. I just couldn't quite understand what to do with helping him learn. That's understandable. Time powers are quite delicate to learn. There's a lot of aspects, but considering the Bela view is focused on stopping time, it gives me a good idea of where to begin. She gave a smile of gratitude and bowed her head. Then I'll trust you here as well, though if it had been anyone but you, I probably wouldn't have accepted that easily. What do you mean? Rias stretched a bit and walked over to take a seat in her chair. It had been a long night so far and she was starting to feel a bit tired. We've known each other since we were kids. You've always helped me whenever I've needed it. So that's why I trust you. Naruto chuckled a bit and retook his seat on the couch. You mean like that one time when we were kids when you got lost in the Citri domain? Her cheeks flared up a bit as she grabbed her forehead with an embarrassed laugh. Yeah, like that one time I got lost in the Citri domain. I don't know what Sona and I were thinking, deciding to play hide and seek in a place I wasn't familiar with. The dark-haired boy stopped chuckling. All I can remember is that the one day I'm out of the house to get some air, I find you crying in the woods. You wouldn't let my hand go the entire way back, and Sona practically forbid me to ever do it again. With a soft smile reminiscing over the past, Rias gave a small sigh. As much as I'd love to talk about the past the whole night, I think I might have to call it a night for now. Understandable. I also have a few things I need to attend to back at the house. Naruto nodded. She gave a curious look. You moved into Ko? Naruto nodded his head again. Yeah, your brother was kind enough to sponsor a mansion, heh? He chuckled and rubbed the back of his head. Sounds like sex so well. I'll see you around then, she said and stood up, and started showing him out of the club building. Naruto gave a small wave as they got out into the chill night air. Sure will. I'll pop in every once in a while. As a club advisor I only have to be here every now and then, thanks Satan. So you won't be attending school with the rest of us? I'm sure the official papers could be changed a bit so you could transfer in as a third year. Rias wondered. With a shrug, Naruto started walking beside her. Nah, not really my style. I'd rather not go through school again, though I'll be around. Oh, and this is my address. I have yet to get a phone, so if you need me for anything just drop in. He smiled and handed her a slip of paper. That's too bad, but oh well. I'll respect your decision, however. I'd imagine Akino and Kiba would also like to persuade you once you start becoming friends. He grimaced a bit and gave her the last wave. I'll see you around, Rias, just not at school. I hate that stuff. As he returned to the mansion that evening, the first thing he did was go in and check on Veldora and Kurama. The former was as usual just sprawled out on the living room couch with a mountain of manga at his side that he was casually reading through. The latter was playing some games on the TV, probably also enjoying the fact that this world was much more technologically evolved than their old one. He was glad that they enjoyed themselves, and he figured he'd let them do it for now. They weren't gonna fight an unofficial rating game anytime soon, perhaps within the month, but they had some time since they hadn't officially challenged anyone yet. Despite Kwama mentioning he wanted to talk with him, the Youkai had waved him off and said it could wait after the game was over. He had sweat dropped at the reaction and afterward insisted that the fox continued with an explanation. He had just sighed and said that there wasn't much to say, just that Kiba might have something he's holding back since he gave off a similar vibe to Sasuke. Not on the same level, because that would be insane, but it would be something to look out for. With all of that being said, he had gone out to relax in the private hot spring. How Surzex had managed to install one of these was beyond him, but who was he to question it when he got to enjoy this experience whenever he wanted to? He sighed as he slipped into the warm water and placed his towel on a nearby rock. Each inch of the hot water rising up against his skin instantly made him feel relaxed, as if all the stress was relieved from his muscles. Though in the midst of his relaxation, he felt that something was off. He mentally cursed his luck that someone might attack him while he was naked, and was going to throw a fit if it was Azazel messing with him again. With his hand outstretched, he charged up an infinite sphere and opened his eyes, glancing around the backyard that was outside the little hot spring area. He couldn't see anyone in the dark, so it was someone adept at hiding. And he knew he wasn't going crazy because he could feel the presence. He wasn't able to use senjutsu, or rather, he didn't know if it was impossible just yet, but under normal circumstances it would be. So he couldn't sense the presence to be precise, but he could definitely feel it. Given that Kurama and Veldora hadn't rushed out here yet due to sensing that something was off, he was convinced a veil, or barrier, had been put up. And so far, he only knew one person that was able to do that without being caught. You know, you need to make up your mind about me. Do you want to fight, or hear my story? With that sentence, he visibly relaxed more and let his guard down a bit. Not completely, since that would be foolish to do in a situation with someone he couldn't be sure wouldn't be hostile. Turning his head around to look in the direction he heard the voice coming from, he watched the dark-haired beauty leaning up against the house wall with her arms crossed under her chest. Her cat ears did a small twist as she looked at him with amusement. Smart play to come chat when I'm naked, making sure I won't attack Kuroka. He snickered and let the orb fade from his hand, before lifting both to show he didn't want any smoke. She smirked a bit, glad to see you acknowledge my genius. I have to admit I'm surprised though. One moment I hear you're this antisocial guy that never leaves his hut, and now you're living the dream in Kuo. Naruto had to admit she seemed more friendly now compared to the last time, probably because Kurama wasn't here. As much as he cared for his friend, the guy had quite a temper and didn't exactly trust many outside him. The only people the fox probably trusted outside him and maybe Veldora at this rate was Yusaka and her daughter, as well as other people in the Youkai faction. Not that he'd blame him, he did have a tough time back in the elemental nations in regards to trust, so he'd let it slide until he knew more about his new cat friend. Glad to hear that everyone speaks so positively about me. Only the second time today I've been called a recluse, he chuckled. He could hear her snicker as she stared at him. Mind if I join you? Been a while since I relaxed at a hot spring, no peeking though. Anyone that has tried that is dead. Naruto blinked as she shrugged his shoulders and turned his head away. Sure, I guess. Why though? You lose your advantage if you get naked too. He joked idly. Kuroka raised a brow as she let her robe fall to the ground. If he were to turn around at this moment he'd get an eyeful for sure. Considering we're about to have a deep talk and all that, I figured I might as well get comfortable. I hope you don't mind. As he heard the sound of the fabric hitting the ground, his face heated up a bit. He wasn't exactly unfamiliar with the opposite gender considering how much trouble Jiraiya had gone through to try and turn him to the dark side in terms of pervertedness. But he had to admit that the Nekisha was a very beautiful woman. He'd likely also lie if he said he didn't want to turn around at this moment, but he figured that he'd rather stay alive for now. You know, if we're gonna do this here you could at least wash my back. He chuckled and leaned back against the hot spring. There was a moment of silence until he felt something soft start pressing against his back. A pair of arms that wrapped around his neck loosely, and the soft strands of her hair tickled against his bare skin. He could feel the heat of his body rising, and it was not because of the water. He glanced out of the corner of his eyes, to watch the playful glance in her amber ones right beside his face. I bet you'd like that, wouldn't you? Part of him was beyond confused about the situation, but another part of him had to appreciate the gesture. He was a man, what could he do? And up close, she looked even prettier than he was willing to audibly admit. And if I said yes? He countered. Much to his amusement, her cheeks flared a bit pink, as she removed herself from his back and slapped a hand over his eyes. His brow twitched in slight annoyance as he heard the sound of her entering the water, and opened his eyes next to see her visibly relaxing in the hot water. You're lucky I like you. If someone like Biko had tried to be smart like that I'd have murdered him. You like me? And for what reason do I get that honor? He asked with genuine curiosity. Kuroka opened her eyes again and looked at him with a small grin. Don't ask, because I don't know. There's something about you that I can't explain. You're a devil yet you seem genuinely interested in hearing what I have to say. You say that like it's rare. She nodded her head. Well, yeah. With senjutsu it's not hard to tell when people are being either horny creeps or trying to use you for their advantage. I don't get that vibe off of you. And no offense, since you're a recluse, I doubt you'd have that social ability to try and hide it even if you were. While that was partially true, he decided to take the compliment. Well, alright then. Since we're being friends so far, why don't you tell me your story? I assume with this barrier in place, we won't be interrupted for a while. So you noticed? You're good. Well, alright. I assume you know the general story since you were kind enough to fill your fox friend in on it. She started. He gave a small nod, yeah, but he was the one that called bullshit on it. I trust him, which gives me hope that you're well, the person I think you are. Kuroka gave him an interesting look at the mention of being the person he thought she was but decided to ignore it to continue on. Well, the story is only partially false. As you've guessed, hooray, I'm not crazy. I did kill my former king though. Makes me wonder why. She gave a sad smile and took a deep breath. She looked at him for a while, wondering if she should truly say this to him. There was just something she could sense, that she couldn't explain. And he already knew from his friend that the story around her was false, so he'd probably continue to press the issue whenever they'd run into each other. With Ophis having an interest in him, they'd likely be doing that a lot in the future. Getting ahead of the situation and figuring out his reaction seemed like the best outcome to satisfy both their curiosities. Long ago, my sister and I only had each other. Her name is Chiron, apparently in the service of Lucifer's little sister, Kuroka mumbled. Naruto gave a small smile, much to her confusement. Yeah, I know, I just met her actually. Though she goes by the name of Kaneko these days it seems. Her eyes opened a bit in surprise as she almost jumped enough in the water to let him see more than he should. How is my Chiron doing? A bit surprised by the sudden outburst, he almost made his decision right there. The reaction could have been acting, but it matched with everything he and Surzex had theorized. Yes, she is alright, though she isn't much of a talker. Kuroka let out a sigh of relief as she dropped back down into the water. Thank you, I needed to hear that. It's been a long time since I've seen her. I can only imagine what she thinks of me. With a slow hand, Naruto reached up to place a hand on her bare shoulder as a comforting gesture. It startled her a bit, but when she saw that he was looking away out of respect she relaxed more. Sorry, I'll get back to it. We didn't have much, and when a devil came along to take us and I accepted. Let me guess, he turned out to be a shithead beyond compare. Naruto interrupted and took his hand back. She giggled a bit at the comment. Yeah, he did experiments on his peerage. I could endure, since he proclaimed it was to make us stronger. However, one day he wanted to do it to Chiron. And I couldn't allow that. I wouldn't allow his slimy hands anywhere near my sister. Naruto frowned as a mental image of Orochimaru appeared in his head. As much as the guy had somewhat turned around to their side during the war, he had been the type of person to do stuff like this. Appeal to people's weaknesses to let him do what he wanted and experiment on them. So you killed him to protect your sister? He asked carefully. She remained silent for a while, before she gave a slow nod of her head. He was a real piece of trash. I don't regret it. I'm not sure she'd even have survived it. He looked on for a bit. Do you know what he wanted to achieve with these experiments? Kuroka glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. He wanted to create a super devil. This time it was Naruto's turn to look surprised. The only times he'd ever heard the term super devil was when someone either spoke of either Surzex or Ajuka. Everything is starting to make sense now. She lifted her head with a raised brow. What makes sense? Everything. Your master, from what I could gather, spoke a lot with the Baal and the old Satan faction. Safe to say the latter has always been displeased with the current system. I think he may have tried to create one to restore power to the old Satan faction. Naruto theorized. Kuroka looked a bit surprised, mentally acknowledging Naruto to be smarter than what she had given him credit for. She wasn't sure if that was the real deal that had been going on, but it was a good guess. You seem to have put a lot of thought into this. I wonder why that is. Naruto leaned back in the warm water. Call me a fool if you want. I always had a problem with sticking my nose in things that weren't really about me. I just never could help myself. She smirked. Well, you are a fool then. Now then you've heard my story. He nodded and thought for a bit, before a determined grin formed on his lips. I think I might be able to help you. What if Naruto Youkai powers in High School DxD? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel. And leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.